Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the podcast on Prince. My name is Michael Dean. You're listening to Podcast Juice. And not only are you listening, you are watching. But today I have a special guest, and we're just going to have a nice conversation. But joining me today, let me bring her on in. All right, joining me today, Miss India. How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Can I just first say that it's such an honor to be on here? Like, I've been watching you for years. I just want to give you your flowers direct because,
I appreciate that.
you've been such a resource for me in learning about Prince and coming in as like a newer fan, like probably like I think like the, early 2010s. So, just watching your videos on who you've interviewed within the Prince community, it's just been such a resource for me. I've cited your work in papers. Like it's been
Really? Wow.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. It's just been such a pleasure to watch your channel evolve, and then just to be on here is such a full circle moment because I'm like fangirling a little bit, but I just
Hilarious.
wanted to give you your flowers in real time and just thank you for allowing me to be on here. And I always love your takes on both of your podcasts, the Prince podcast and your personal one. So it's just an honor to be here today. So thank you for having me.
Oh, wow. I didn't expect that. Thank you. That's awesome. Wow.
Had to give you flowers, had to surprise you. You can't
I'm
just,
taking the flower. Right on. I appreciate that. It's funny, like when you do stuff, whatever you do,
Mhm.
sometimes you don't know where it's being seen and like all this other stuff. And just on the last few years, I really started to get a scope of, wow, there's so many different ways people are kind of listening to what I'm doing. I don't normally see it, but so it's awesome to see that, to hear
Yeah,
that.
you're a living archivist of
Wow.
Prince's journey. So you're so like crucial. I always talk about how D'Angela and you all like you are
Mm,
documenting your perception of Prince and Prince's blackness in real time. And that is super important. Like these are time capsules, just as these box sets are that are going to be there for other future fans to see, to digest, and to take onto their own. So your work is so important, and just never stop doing what you do. Just do it till you can't do it. Like D'Angelo says, so you can't do it no more. Like I don't
for
want to see
sure.
you retire. I don't want to see you guys retire, but
Yes.
the day comes, but just as long as you can do it, please do this for us because this work is
Oh,
phenomenal.
well,
And you
yeah,
guys
I
are
appreciate it. Well, we're gonna keep it pushing, but
Mhm,
the great thing, and we're gonna get into our conversation,
mhm,
is people like yourself, specifically you, are pushing
mhm.
it forward just as well. So,
Thank
this is
you.
what we're supposed to do. And real quick before we move forward, I want to mention the platform that you've created, Purple Townhouse.
Yes, the Purple
Yep.
Townhouse, formerly known as Purple Town Hall, but there was a lot of
Oh,
drama
okay.
with that, so we we tried to rebrand and make sure it was all about the good vibes and the good energy because
Gotcha.
really the Purple Town Hall, which happened back in April, uh, it was kind of a shoot, it was really a call to everybody to get along. We kind of had a
Mm,
Rotten King moment, and it was like, "Can we all just get along?" So we were trying to just sort out there was some discourse that happened and certain folks took it the wrong way. We're just really trying to bridge a generational conversation and facilitate that to happen within the Prince community and get
mhm.
everybody's voices heard. And, it was a great conversation, but there was a lot of drama behind the scenes and people discouraging us not to do it. And
Really?
it was a lot, it was a lot to take on, but
And
um,
this is you're speaking specifically about, like, I guess I call seasoned or, older people,
yeah, yeah.
younger sort of
Yeah.
fans, but there's unfortunately, there's this kinda mess, I guess, is the best way
Yes,
that
yes,
you guys are trying to, let's smooth it out.
exactly. It was kind of like the whole dynamic of ageism on both sides. So we were trying to figure
Mm,
that out, and there was an incident that happened with one of our podcast hosts, and we allowed her to speak. What
hmm,
she was really trying to say. And a lot gets lost in conversation when you're tweeting, and you don't
yeah,
know everybody's tone, and so it just went a whole other direction.
mm,
And so we're like, yo, bump this. We're about to have a conversation live and direct. Like, we're not even, let's just hash it out here. Whatever we have, whatever grievances, but also what can we do to move this forward?
mhm,
It wasn't just, okay, this is going to be a bashing session on both sides. How
mm,
are we going to, facilitate change within the community? And so that's kind of where we were coming from. And then we transformed that. We got some calls to like, hey, y'all need to make this a regular thing. And we were like a one and done. We were like, we're just gonna have this conversation and, you know, facilitate this conversation and let it go. And then go about our business, because we do different things in the Prince community. Before we came together, you know, we were all either active on our social medias or doing, you know, Randy DJs, and, you know, so we kind of had our own circles going on. But we just, you know, Dawn actually on Twitter was like, I need y'all to come back. And then Chloe was like, y'all definitely need to come back. And so we kind of just went full fledged with it and start planning. And we'll be back this January. We kind of took a little break to reconfigure our spaces and kind of take a lot of the feedback that we got on those Google Forms and figure it out. And we have a brand new schedule for quarter 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we ready to go. So, you know, we're switching around some dynamics and making it work so that we all get a chance to shine. And it's not just me hosting 100% of the time. So it's going to be great. Yeah.
Okay. And, you know, you mentioned, I want to shout out a few people. Randy, salute to Randy.
Yes. Randy,
Chloe, you dig?
Yes.
That's my homegirl from
Yep.
years back. Podcast Juice. But yeah, salute. And
I just want to shout out all of my all of my podcasts or we're podcast/space people, but I just want to shout out all of the members, and it's Perla, Randy, Chris, and myself. We all are the Purple Townhouse, just in case I didn't make that clear. But we also bring on special guests and people of the new power generation who we welcome as family 100%. So
love it. And salute to all of the other podcasters, YouTubers, social media people, everybody that's doing their piece and putting the Prince thing out there. Salute to you all. We love you.
I am a huge fan of like everybody. I'm like, y'all are just amazing. I wish I could.
Real people out there. All right, so I follow you on the social media, Twitter, and these different things. I see you posting. And one of the things, aside from the Prince stuff that I love, you're into, like, for instance, Tupac Shakur.
Yes,
Tupac, you know,
the one and
only.
only.
I'm into Tupac. Yeah, so I just wanted to kind of connect with you and let's see kind of what we can get into and talk about. So sort of set the tone. I wanted to play something. You've probably heard this before, but it's a cool bridging of both of these two titans. I like to call them. And so we're just going to get into this real quick. Now, I will say, for my YouTube people watching this, some of this may get edited out because, right? But for all my Patreon folks, you'll be able to see the whole thing uncut. So there you go. All right, here we go.
Knew it. I just knew it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Molly too.
It ain't easy being me. Life as a celebrity is less than heavily. I got these fakes and these backstabs chasing me around, and it's always drama. Whenever I want to get around, mama told me long before I ever came up, gotta be true to what you do and keep the game up. Cause things change and jealousy becomes a factor. Best friends at your White House trying to mac her. I'm on tour, but still ain't keep on knocking at my door. And I got no time to work, I'm steady wanting more. Every day is a test, yes. I try hard, but I'm struggling with every breath. I pray to God that the woman that I left at home all alone ain't nothing like trying to bone. Over the phone in my mind, I can see him naked. I can't take it, got me shaking at the thought that we can
Come on,
make it.
man.
I thought you knew. Girls getting on it too. Girls getting on it too.
Oh, man.
Girls getting on it too. I thought you knew. Girls getting on it too.
Love it. All right, I'm going to take that out of here. When you first heard that, what was your thoughts?
I literally already knew you were going to play that. I just, something in my spirit was like, I just knew. You said a bridge. I was like, I knew. But when I first heard that, it was so funny because I was going through like my Tupac bootlegs phase. So I was going through all of like the OG versions, the unreleased studio stuff that was just, you know, and this is probably like high school, like back then.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, high school, middle schoolish. And I was going through like the thug life period heavy. And I knew you played it. My thug life beanie on, but I was going through that period, and so I was kind of just going through the unreleased pop periods, like through album by album, and so I came across that, and I was like, two people that I love. Like there's a connection. I can't believe it. And I always knew it was like a Gemini thing. I just didn't know the depths of Tupac's connection or intersection with Prince. And that sent me on a whole discovery period, because once I figure out that like my two of my favorite artists or people I know or I adore have something in common, I just go down a rabbit hole. And then that kind of sparked this whole thing, in which I did a thread on Twitter. Like it was one of those kind of things. But I always like at this time I was heavily researching both of them. I took them on as research subjects, so it was just a mind. Let me be PG. It was a mind-blowing situation. I want to say, yeah, head buster. Yeah, exactly. So, I was just overjoyed. Like I couldn't even explain my excitement. It was like, and I really didn't have that much people to share it with, because, there weren't as many people into Prince and Pac as I was. So once I got to a platform where I felt like I could share it, like, now, I was like, oh my God, I got to make a whole thread out of this. Like, this is actually a thing. It's not just, one song. He just sampled a song, because everybody, hip hop, especially in the 90s, they were just sampling left and right. But there was a distinct choice to sample If I Was Your Girlfriend, and then to see that it showed up in his letters while he was at Clinton, when he was talking, sending letters to Simi, who was actually in the Xana Lee video. And there's a whole bunch of connections.
Oh wow, I didn't know this.
Yeah, he was sending songs to her, or songs to listen to, recommending, and he was talking about hits and the B-sides. And If I Was Your Girlfriend showed up on there as one of his favorites, among like several other things I can't remember off the top of my head. But there was some really distinct. I was like, oh, he got taste. Like he really be listening to Prince, like, and then now, like, reading his biography, which I have here, like, he was talking about, or they were talking about, how he used to have Sheila E. posters on his wall. Like he was, when he was living in Baltimore, like it was that heavy. Like he was actually immersed in the Prince world, and how much he would pretend to be Prince with his cousins. And, he was the band leader. Nobody else could be Prince. He was Prince. Y'all were the revolution, like type of situation. So there was a connection, and, it could be a Gemini thing, but a creative connection at that. So
yeah. And excuse me, just to go back to this particular song, the first things that jumped out to me was I could see somebody sampling that song itself. It was such a big thing at the time it came out, and we all loved Prince. You didn't have to be, you weren't like a hardcore Prince fan. It's just everybody was a Prince fan, like so. But the fact that he sampled that particular version off of the Sign of the Times movie always blew my mind. Like, wait, what? Because hardly anybody, there's people who knew the song, but they didn't really know that movie. The movie kind of fell more toward the hardcore, almost obscure fans to know that. But the fact that Pac was rapping, I was just like, yo, and I had heard it a little after he passed, kind of when all of that stuff started kind of dumping out, the unreleased stuff. And I remember it was a really worse version of this. But I was just like, yo, how did this not come out? I didn't know anything about the copyrights and all that kind of shit.
Yeah.
But it blew my mind. And then kind of like you, diving in once the book started to come out after he died, and you saw, and I mentioned this book, but you had a copy, what's the one where he was writing the letters to the young lady?
Oh, Angela, this one right here, Inside a Thug's Heart.
That's the book. I remember when that first came out, it was like a little cover. And I remember going to Barnes and Nobles. I scooped that up, and that's what made me start to become. I was already a fan of Pac, but that's when I was like, I read that, I was like, yo, like, I didn't know this, and I can see the Prince-ness in the way he wrote, and in those letters, there was a lot of. I was like, yo, this dude is in the Prince, isn't like, what is this? And it was such a difference of the way he had been sort of portrayed at that time. You could hear it in the lyrics, but you just thought maybe he was just. I didn't know his inspiration was coming from this place. You know what I mean? The connection of it, and it blew my mind. Go ahead. You was gonna say
no. I was agreeing. But yes, absolutely. and she was doing a lot of press around Inside a Thug's Heart, and I believe Afeni like co-signed that for her and let her
Mm,
ride, which was also cool because you really got to see the human part. Like
yeah.
that's, and you know, Pac has always been real. Like we understand that, but like to actually see his vulnerability, to see where he comes from and his
Mm,
interactions with women, because he was raised by women. Like his whole village was women, from Yasmin, and rest in peace to Sekou Udinga, who passed away today, which is part of his village as far as the
oh, boy.
revolutionaries. But amazing freedom fighter, revolutionary, but and foundational in the Black Panther movement, especially in New York.
Mm,
But understanding like those people, like Afeni, Yasmin, his sister, all of those people were pivotal in how he operated
mm,
in the world. That was, you know, he grew up in a household where his father was not a primary, you know, anchor. His mom was all of that for him. And so, and then the women that his mom brought around him, the powerful women that his mom brought around him, were all of that. And so you kind of just see him push all of that into the women that he loved. You know, might have been multiple women, you know, but so like Prince, you know, it was a lot of girls around with Pac because he was just a magnet for women.
well,
But
yeah.
because he knew how to treat women, and he always came from a place, no matter what the lyrics or, you know, a feeling or whatever the case may have been at that
Mm,
time, he always had this profound respect. And I always believe it's divine too, just for women, period. And
mm,
that's what I love most about him, is that when you really look at his earlier days, just especially in the School of the Arts, you know, he was just a Shakespearean kid, like, you know. But I have to say this, a lot of people are always like, well, Pac wasn't no thug, like he wasn't that. I was like, no, he grew up in that life. Don't understand that that's part of him, but you can also have multi dimensions of yourself. Blackness is not monolithic,
right.
you know. There's so many experiences that we take on, and so, you know, that respect for women is always there, but he also has dealt with, you know, the non-respectful side of women. So some of that came out, and you know, and then, you know, there was this whole thing with Haitian Jack and the, you know, the case
Mm,
and Ayanna Jackson, and so
right.
it put a lot of things into question, especially for Black women. But to see Angela like love him through that, whether, you know, was partially romantic because there was some loneliness going on in prison, but there was also just the friendship side of him wanting to develop a genuine friendship and see where it goes. I thought
Mm,
that was super empowering, and just to, you know, see the natural uplifting of just Black men who are down, you know, like New York totally abandoned him.
mm,
Nobody was caring for everybody, like every celebrity dropped. You know, there was a select few that were around, but like people were not rocking with him when he went through that trial. And so to see the amount of love he received just in letters from women, and not just Angela, but all the women that he was talking to in prison, and then to see Keisha, his wife, hold him down that
mm,
way, like salute to her, because she doesn't get enough
yeah.
credit, but she held
Yeah.
him down, like for real.
I remember, and I'm sure this magazine, I don't know if it comes out anymore, but it used to be there. To me, it was the original shade room, but it was without the shade. It was like in a caring place. Was I don't you ever heard of
Yeah,
Sisters?
sister to sister, of
Yeah,
course.
Sisters.
Jamie and Jamie Foster, Jamie.
Yeah. Is that that's a
She
they still
still
do
has it, but it's kind of like an online
okay.
situation, because you know, like a lot of print magazines are just gone. They're
Right.
obsolete. So,
Yeah.
but she
I used to
still
love that.
holds the LLC and the business side of it
Okay.
now. So
I
I think
remember
it's
she
like
had her on
Sister 2.0 now. Yeah.
she
Mhm.
had I think it was a cover story.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I remember buying that when I was like, "Whoa," and I was like, "What?" And I used to read that, and I remember too, like, this is sort of like the comment section or the letters section. I remember they was trying to get at her a little bit. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, it was such interesting. Now, all these years later, it's online nowadays, but
Hmm.
yeah, he had his wife, a lady he had got married to.
Hmm.
Um, that was just such an interesting period back then when it was happening because it was like we loved we loved Pac, but on one hand, it was like you knew he was gonna be in some trouble because it's just like every time you would hear about it, it was always some foolishness, like, "Ah, what are you doing?" And then when he went to jail, it was kinda like, "Wait a minute, what did you do now? Like, come on, man. Like, we love you. And his music was hitting at the, like, what's the
Yeah.
album? Me Against the World.
Well, I think it
I was
was
like,
Strictly Format that was out before that because Me Against the World came out when he was in prison. He was
right, that's what I'm
incarcerated.
saying.
Oh,
So
oh,
his
when he
music was hitting so hard at the time, but he
oh,
wasn't around, like he was in
oh,
jail. But I remember like the number one song, and I remember when Dear Mama video came out. Of course, he
mhm.
was in prison or whatever. Wasn't there another video, or was it Dear Mama's a video and it had some of the other celebrities?
Temptations.
Temptations. Yeah.
Yeah, it had like Jada and like Tretch and all those folks. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And it was just like, man, where is this cat? Like, what is he? But he was, but we were listening, and I'm just thinking how I remember Pac. It was like the early album, Strictly for My Niggas.
Mhm.
What was the name of the first album?
Tupacalypse Now.
Apocalypse.
Mhm.
It was like we all knew who he was. Like, oh, okay, this is the guy that was from Digital. He was from Same Song, but that was dope. You know, he was like a breakout. And then of course Juice.
Yeah.
And I remember the albums were coming out, and the albums, it was like, I'm gonna be honest, it was maybe a couple songs that I liked at the time. But I was like, but you could see he was kind of getting the formula. He was starting to get the formula down, and he would have those hit songs that When I Get Around came out. I was like, oh snap, this is the joint. Like, okay, this is Pac. You got one right here. You know, that was like, okay. And that's when I really started I was like, let me start paying attention. You know, it's interesting, just to go
Mhm.
back to Prince as well. The connection of the Shock G
Yes.
and Shock G sort of pulling from P-Funk and Prince and all that, it blended over to me liking Pac because of, like, I Get Around had that
Yeah.
sound, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I can
That's the
hear the funk
world,
in there."
all of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and then Pac was spinning. I was like, and so I started to associate Pac with that kind of sound, you
Mhm.
know, and then he started kinda getting into that with Thug Life and then the Me Against the World, and I was like, "Oh, he finally his albums are, like,
Yeah.
matching his they're matching his lyrics and his style or whatever." The music
Yeah.
was all top notch now, and I was like, "Oh, man, this guy is about to blow, like, this is dope." And then, like you say, went to prison, and then I'm just running all over, but then when that California Love came out, I was just like,
Oh, yeah. The G-Funk, like, he really started that G-Funk, incorporation. Yeah, Strictly for My Niggas, like, was really the start of all of that. And then it just went to a whole nother level because he really started to put himself into the party
mm,
rap side of when he got out of prison. It was really about one, it was about really laying everybody out and telling you, hey, look, prison ain't changed me, it made me worse. Quote. That was what he said. So he came out to lay business down, take care of business, but also you just hear like
it was ferociousness of it.
yeah, the fury, the inner fire, like, and he wasn't even writing in prison, which is what is the
Mm,
crazy thing. Is like it suppressed him so much. But when he came out, it's the crazy. I always remember the story of him having. He was so excited, so ramped up that he ended up having like a seizure in the studio, like the first day he came out because
wow,
he has so much. Mind you, he drinks and smokes, so he was like off all of that. He comes back to Cali on the flight, all of that, gets to the studio, just smoking, drinking, writing,
mm,
doing all of this
mm,
hyperactivity, and just like literally records one song and passes out. And so
yeah,
he ended up having to go home for the day. But I think about that, I'm like that there's the same thing with Prince, there's this fire that no matter where they are, where life circumstances take them, there's no taming that. He was
mm,
on 100% of the time. His work ethic, he was on, especially in the later years, but I see it in the earlier years. Like, dude was writing his biography, his own book
crazy.
on his life before he was even famous. Like,
That's
when you get that biography and anybody has a chance to read it, he literally has chapters written out about his life, just how much he's endured as being a child of a Panther. And he
mm.
had his whole life written out up into like probably 1991-ish.
Oh, wow,
This is pre-fame. Again, he was already geared up
already
to
on
do
that.
that. He was writing scripts while he was in the courtroom going through all of that. literally writing several scripts. And if you've gone to the Wake Me When I'm Free exhibit, a lot of those are on display. Treatments for videos. Like, he documented his history so well in written form, just like Prince did. If you look at the I will say the Diamonds and Pearls Super Deluxe, you see all of the written artifacts. You'll see all of the things that were listed out, all of the handwritten lyrics. Pac was the same way. And it just further cements how in charge of their narrative they were at a very young age, you know. And I think, to go back to your point of how Tupacalypse Now was like a slow grower, even Strictly for My Niggas was for some people was like, oh, I see you're getting to the hit, but you're not there yet. Like, that's, again, you can attribute that to Prince's career. Like, it took him a few albums in 1999 for people to be like, oh my God, this is the guy. But the Black community already knew, you know, but, you know, like, you know, certain hubs already knew, Detroit already knew, DC knew, like certain parts of the world already knew about these people, but like Oakland knew for Pac, and Cali kind of knew for Pac. But it took him a minute to blow up in, you know, where he was from, New York. It took him a minute to grow like that. And then Me Against the World solidified him, just as Purple Rain solidified, or actually I'll say Me Against the World solidified him just as 1999 solidified Prince. And then his Purple Rain was All Eyes on Me.
Interesting. I like that.
Yeah. So it's like, and then unfortunately, and then Machiavelli, even though it was recorded in 3 days and it's a follow-up, and after his death, it was ready to go. It was like a mixtape for the streets. But that follow-up was
that came out at the way it originally was.
Oh, that back album cover. A lot of people are saying he's a prophet, but you know, that's not my words.
Right.
That's what people are saying on social media. But you know, hey.
Let's I want to go. I want to talk about that. But I want to go back for a second. We'll come back to that Machiavelli. I want to play another song. Another one that is one of my favorite Pac songs. And it's from the Above the Rim soundtrack. So you may know where I'm going with this. But let me just get it going.
But notice your pain. My pain? It runs deep. Share it with me.
I love this. I still play this like it came out today.
Yes.
They'll never take me alive. I'm getting high with my profile. Cocked on these suckers, time to die. Even as a youngster, causing ruckus on the back of the bus. I was a fool all through high school, kicking up dust, but now I'm labeled as a troublemaker. Who can you blame? Smoking weed help me take away the pain. So I'm hopeless, rolling down the freeway, swerving. Don't worry, I'm about to crash up on the curb, cause my business blurry. Maybe if they tried to understand me, what should I do? I had to feed my fucking family. What else could I do? Or be a thug? I'm slanging with the homies, fuck hanging with the phonies in the club. Got my mind no danger, never been a stranger to homicide. My city's full of gangbangers and drive-bys. Why do we die at an early age? He was so young, but still a victim of the 12 gauge. My memories of a corpse, mind full of sick thoughts, and I ain't going back to court. So fuck what you thought. I'm drinking Hennessy, running from my enemies. When I let them be 23 and so much pain. Years and years of that rough life.
This is a stretch.
Yep.
He was tight too.
Down like the fucking predator. Get in trouble every day in school. Act a fool, and you know I had to break every rule. Showing off.
Man, the energy of the way that they're going is just like, they are riding that beat, man.
Yeah.
One of my favorite just rap hip hop songs, period. One of them.
That soundtrack I think is so underrated. Like, you know, as far as hip hop soundtracks, I don't think people
I don't think it's underrated personally.
Really?
I think it is. If you ask people, at least I'll be around, what's the best soundtrack? I mean, of modern times, Above the Rim is always in that conversation. Like
okay.
to me, like that was listen, Superfly, classic, iconic, Purple Rain, iconic, Saturday Night Fever, iconic. But
Mhm,
I think for the new generation of from the
mhm.
80s, 90s, or the 90s, that's the best soundtrack. It to me,
Yeah.
period. Like
No,
it's and it's
definitely.
from and the fact that it's from Death Row, I
Yeah.
think speaks to the fact of how poppin' Death Row really was, where
Mhm.
you expect this gangster rap, hardcore LA gangster rap label who has
Yeah.
built their back on super gangster albums comes with a R&B
Mhm.
rap soundtrack to a major motion picture, and has the best songs from all the different groups and some new people.
Yeah.
I
It's a
I always tip
bi-coastal
my hat to
album.
them. Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
mad bi-coastal, which I love about it is because it's like SWV, Method
Mm.
Man, like Wu-Tang, and then you got Jewel. Like, shout outs to the Queen of Death Row because Jewel, long live her because she
Yeah, rest in
rest
peace.
in power to her. You know, she's the voice from a lot of the hooks that we
Mhm,
uh
mhm.
from For the Love of Money to,
Afro Puffs,
yeah, Afro Let Me Ride, all of that.
Regulate. I mean, there's so many iconic songs
Yeah.
from this album. Like, Regulate
Yes.
is from this album.
Yep. Regulators.
Yeah, it's a classic. Man, yeah, this ah, but so and then the Pac stuff, like, there was this song, and then there was the was it "Gay, yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
Loyal
Loyalty to
to the Game.
Game," which
Yeah,
was, I
had
remember
Tretch on it.
correctly, Tretch was on it.
Yeah.
It wasn't on it was only on the cassette version at the time.
Yeah, yeah, 'cause
I
Pain was
remember.
only on the cassette version too. Mhm, mhm.
Right. Right, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. And that was the song that to me, it was in the movie, wasn't it? They played the song in the movie a little bit, the beat,
Pain?
Pain.
Or yes, yes, it
And I
was.
remember that's why I was like, "Yo, what is that?" And I
Yeah.
remember getting that record, I was like, "Yo, this is one of the illest songs," and I couldn't understand. I was like, "Why wouldn't they lead with this is the song?" But, of course, they had all these other hits off that album, but yeah,
Right,
that was
right.
yeah,
But
so
that was a banger, that needed to be on there, and I was so mad, like, when I got there was, like, the Death Row soundtracks, little compilation thing they had.
oh,
It
really?
gang related, it had Gridlock, and it had Above the Rim. And Pain was not on there, nor was Loyal to the
Wow.
Game. So I had to get the cassette because it wasn't on there. And then eventually they remastered it and put that stuff out there. And then when Snoop acquired it, they took it down and they put it back up. It was a lot,
Oh,
because he was
wow.
doing T stuff, but it
Interesting.
wasn't exposed to a lot of younger people like it should have been because it
Yeah.
was, yeah, they just had Pour Out a Little Liquor on there. That was pretty much the only
Which
pop song people knew.
which is another banger too. I
Yeah,
was, like,
yeah.
tripping off that song for the long coming to find out that was the on Thug Life. I was gonna say, this
Mhm.
period of Pac for me is my personal favorite, like,
Absolutely.
that whole Thug Life, all
Yeah.
that stuff, that's what's that? Doom, 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 boom, doom, bing, down.
Stay True. Yeah,
Thug
that's
Life,
my
yeah, that wow.
song. I
Yeah, that's
love
a
it.
confusion.
Thug Life. Y'all know the rules, gotta do what you gotta do. Stay true.
Yes, I and this I had got onto that album late, like, I didn't
Oh,
get into that album until, uh, All Eyes on Me came out. For
okay.
some reason, I always remember I would always go to Tower Records was still open at the time, and I would go there every Friday and looking, and I would see the Thug Life tape there, but it Tupac is not featured on the cover where you could just easily identify to see it, so I
Yeah.
would just look past it, I would just, I don't know, "What is that?"
Mhm.
I picked up, all the other stuff, and I didn't realize that he was on that. And so when I heard some of these other songs, I didn't know they were Thug Life, I attributed them to Tupac, and
Right.
so when that All Eyes on Me came out, somebody said, "Yo, that's actually Pac, is Thug." He says Thug Life, that's the I was like, "Oh, that's his group where he's on?" So I remember picking that up in my head, I was blown away listening, I was like, "What? How
Yeah.
come I never" and I had never seen the videos
Yeah.
weren't getting rotated at that time for that album, so I just didn't know, and my number 1 Pac song of all time is off of there is, Straight Ball.
Oh, that's that Bootsy.
Yeah. No, some we say something.
Yeah.
I would tell you white folks or something, but nah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Man, that's when I went over the edge. I was, oh, this dude, he's talking crazy,
What?
but the
Yeah.
way he's saying it, and I've almost felt like he was singing or something. It was like singing.
Yes.
My
His
God.
cadence is
Yeah.
crazy.
Out of
Like,
control.
and
Yeah.
he always had that, like, the melodic way in which he raps has always been kind of a point of solace for me because it's
Mm,
unique. And Biggie has that same melodic flow because I don't know if anybody has watched the doc, but they talk about how Biggie went to he had like a jazz musician player that he would go see that was his neighbor, and he learned a lot of his way of flowing through
mm,
him, just watching his musicianship and learning jazz through him. And so if you hear certain ways in which Biggie raps, you can hear the jazz within
mm,
it. Jazz and hip-hop has that tight connection.
mm,
But circling back to Pac, I think Pac has that same thing, especially as being like somebody that admires Shakespeare a lot. There is a certain flow to his lyrics that give a Shakespearean vibe, and there's a melodic vibe
mm,
in Shakespeare and in theater. So it's
mm.
it's all connected.
Oh
Like
man.
his
Yeah.
training in the arts is just, and he's a poet, so he's gonna flow like spoken word is rap. Rap is spoken
Mm,
word. All of that is familial, and they're all a family tree, and we gotta make sure we make a distinction, I guess, between rap and hip hop, because rap is part of hip hop, but he
right.
embodies hip hop for sure. But what he's contributed to rap is far beyond measures.
Yeah, yeah, the way you explain it
Mm,
is the combination of all of these things, and I mean, that is the biggest thing maybe that really separates him
yeah.
from everybody is that,
Mhm.
yeah, you might be the greatest lyricist, or you might be the greatest, producer, or there's something, but he encompassed so many different things that he was exposed to that would
Yeah.
just make it unique. I mean, one, you could be all these other things, but were you brought up around the Panthers? Was your
Mhm.
ideology shaped by this to be this thing, which his was like, so he brings, like you said, it's a unique mixture of, if you had a guy raised by revolutionaries, but is also, uh, and this is something, he is beautiful.
Yeah.
He visually looks like this, uh, you just can't take your eyes. There's certain magnetism that is exuding from him. There's actually, I think, there's a he is almost in the, not the opposite of Prince. Prince excludes a very sensual masculinity,
Mhm. Mhm.
but he's also very manly.
Yeah.
Even with all of the stuff, his manliness is seeping through all that you can't.
Yes.
That's what makes it why it's not a joke. Like, and
Yeah.
I think that's something when you look at these impersonators of people, they easily, you can put all the
Right.
fluffy Prince, but you're not a man about.
Right.
Prince can't not be a man. He's a man, and I think Tupac, he is still very pretty, like the eyes and the eye, like I can identify as a man. I can see the eyes, the
Eyelashes,
eyebrows, the eyelashes, the
structure, like,
the jaw,
he
the
always kept
teeth.
his nails were always, like, polished and clean, like,
Yeah,
he was a very handsome dude, like, for
yeah,
real, like, you can't
and
even deny
he was very handsome, but at the same point, he was, even in the style that he was in,
Oh, yeah.
it was still very like, yo, not most cats have that. That's the pretty niggas,
Yeah.
pretty motherfuckers, but he's still a man, and then he's also kind of a hot hit,
Yeah,
very energized. And again, he's been raised up, but he's also understands, like you said, Shakespeare. He understands theater. He
yeah,
understands the tone of his voice and how to fluctuate that and make it fit to Oh, I'm talking to the lady, or oh, my nigga, you know what I mean? Like he understood the
Yeah.
almost as a preacher, and he just
Yeah.
had all of that, and he was smart. Like, you know what I'm saying? So,
Mhm.
and you know what? And the other thing, he cared. He
Yes.
actually cared about the listener, his community. So if you ever saw him, when you hear these stories, he wasn't just going, "Oh, yeah, yeah. Oh, what's up? What do you need? Come on, I got you. Let's go. Let's go do it right now. Are you sure? Yeah, we're gonna hold off. I want to make sure she get this whatever, or she needs somebody to go to the prom. I'm going to the prom with that young sister. You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? So he
Mhm.
had that I think is missing from pretty much most artists, unfortunately. But
Yeah.
he cared, and he cared. So he
Yeah.
was still the shining everything, but he actually loved the people, and you could see, like, he was almost taken aback and shocked, like, "I love y'all. Y'all not gonna hold me up when I go," I could see he's frustrated, like, I did everything in my power. I love y'all women. Y'all think I did this? Come on, like, what the hell? So I could so I get it, and he wore it on the sleeve.
Yeah.
I'm
And
kinda
that
rambling,
No,
but
no, of course. No, please go on, because that was exactly, but, like, and then to see him, um, I guess, how can you say this? Like, to see him be broken was, like,
Mm,
really by his own people was very eye-opening to me, because I was like, "How you let this brother down?" Looking in retrospect, because I wasn't around to experience him in
mhm,
totality. But, um, how can you let this brother down? And I understand what it looks like, but looking at him and his mom, like, how they experienced similar tropes, like, they gave themselves so much to the community, and I recall him talking about
mhm,
how, his mother was like, "Don't give yourself completely to your community, because they will use you. They
mm,
will use you." And and I was like, as much as he tried not to go down that route, it still ended up doing that, because he was such a champion for us, and for the young black male. That was his whole thing, like,
mhm,
making sure I'm representing the young black male, but also the sisters too. I'm not going to forget about you. I'm not going to forget about the marginalized communities. That's what made him so unique, is that he could speak to the streets, but he could also speak to the people of college. He can also speak to
mhm,
white folks. He can also speak to everybody. Like, it you could find a place, and he's like a walking definition of who he is, like, literally, because you see him hang out with people like Mickey Rory, I forgot his name, Mickey
Ricky
R.
Rock?
Yeah,
Mhm,
there you go. But you'll see him hanging out with Madonna, you'll see him hanging out with all of
right,
these diverse figures, and this is literally what he did at Baltimore School of Arts. Like, he was doing that there. He was
mhm,
hanging out with Jada, but he also had a friend named John, who was a white boy.
yeah,
And there's just there the diversity that radiates within him also radiated without, outwards to the world. And so it's so interesting, because, like you said, people nowadays, you don't really see that, but he was just 100% truthful all around, and he was going to make sure that message reached people. He's going to make sure that everybody could feel that. And that's what's different between all the other rappers and
mhm,
him, is that he made sure every single person and every single demographic could feel what he was saying. And you can speak, like you said, you can be a lyricist, but you cannot make people feel what you're saying. The
mhm, mhm,
cadence and the delivery in which he was making people feel what he said, down to the beat selection, down to production, because he was very involved with that. Let's not forget that. Even though he might have not been producing in the earlier days, he was very selective of what beats he
mhm,
chose and how he was getting his messages out. And I want to circle back to the Shakespearean part of him you
mhm,
were talking about. Like, a lot of people don't realize on Tupacalypse Now, a lot of that was very much still with him. He has a song called "Something Wicked This Way Comes," something wicked this way comes, which is literally what, from Macbeth, I believe. Like,
mhm,
it's a Shakespearean phrase. Like, that was very much with him. And then back to, I'm kind of jumping around here a little bit, but
you
back
good.
to his mother and his Panther lineage. You learn to become a speech like person. You have to be a conveyor of message.
Right,
That's part of being an activist or a revolutionary, a freedom fighter, is that you have to learn to connect with everybody that's in the room. You have to make
mhm,
everybody feel what you're saying. And that is attributed to that 100% as well. He was immersed. I was just reading the book called by Santi. That is, I think it's, yeah, American. This book right here. I'm actually just going to pull it out. But this book right here, this talks
Oh,
about,
okay. I've seen
yeah,
that. I haven't never picked that up.
yeah, this talks about his family lineage. And then I just got look at look at me through the world when I believe, and that talks about the Panther 21 in totality. But when you read that book and learn his lineage from Saladin, who is, you know, the matriarch, the family matriarch,
Mm.
to the future, like Malik, who is his sister Set's son, you just see that lineage is all throughout them. Like they all have that same essence and how to deliver without being preachy, but know how to reach people's hearts, you know. And
Mhm.
so it's definitely a Shakur thing, you know. You can't get that anywhere else. But you know,
Yeah.
being raised as a revolutionary shapes you uh to deliver certain messages and know how to reach your people, whatever medium you're doing it, whether he's acting or not. Because even
Mhm.
within acting, he was reaching people. Like I think Gridlocked and Gang Related were like two of his best movies. Like we were
Interesting.
yet to see his full potential in acting, you know. And a lot of the roles he didn't get because he was a liability for some, you know, insurance purposes. And you
Mhm.
know, there were some, you know, things with him being in prison that he didn't get, like he was supposed to be in higher learning. And to see him play the powerful role that Omar Epps ended up playing would have been such a change. We've never seen Pac as a college student, and he wanted to be a college student, you know. So
Mhm.
there's certain things that, you know, I just feel, but I feel like Poetic Justice, of course, introduced us to the more softer side of him, as he
Mhm.
puts it. But yeah, I think I lost my train of thought there,
No,
but I
no, this is good.
but you know,
What
yeah, yeah.
um and we're gonna keep talking about Pac. You know, one of the things
Mhm.
when I think of him, and I'm like, all of this potential. And when
Mhm.
I say potential, I mean what he could have been past, you know, when he left us. What he could have been as a grown man.
Yeah.
You know, because I looking at it now, I realize, man, he was very
He
young.
young.
You know, he's in his 20s, but you can see he's still very young, very emotional. You know, he hasn't gotten to that grown man sort of
Mhm.
wisdom thing. Not to say that he wasn't kicking a lot of stuff, but he
Yeah.
was just kinda like, "Ah," as opposed to, you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
as opposed to being Hannes Matulu Shakur,
Yes,
you know what I'm
exactly.
saying? But what how do I wanna phrase this?
Mhm.
What was it that steered wrong? You know, is it because of just every these everything else of the world
Mm.
touching him and sort of, okay, man, you're kind of positioned to be the a messiah, or you're positioned to be something great and to carry this thing on of
Right.
what your mother and your parents and the people that surrounded you have gifted you this mission in a sense.
Mhm.
And you become a thing to the people. Now, you have the ear to the streets, you have the ear to the youth
Mhm.
uh, across the across the world almost. But
Yeah.
what sort of like, you know, I can kind of also see of all this great stuff we talked about. There is also he is just as real, you
Absolutely.
know, getting himself into these predicaments.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, which is the part of me that just hurts when I think about. I was like,
Yeah.
God damn it, ah, Pac,
You're like,
you know,
"Why?"
yeah,
No.
like come on, man. Like
Yeah.
you can hear. You hear it, you're doing it, but at the same point, then he'll flip it and go right over here and be doing
Right.
whatever, you know,
Right.
it's what do you think, like, contributes to
Uh,
that for him? Like, you know
I think like all great leaders, there's a point of, well, great young leaders, there's a point
mm,
of distraction.
okay.
You're distracted from with all the obstacles the world throws at you. Like, although Pac has lived multiple lives and he's wise beyond his years, like I connect to him on a personal level because he's an old soul like me. Like you lived a lot of life, but you're like this 20 something year old, right?
Mm,
And the thing that happens when you have that type of weight and you're carrying the community on your back like that, there's a lot of pressure. And pressure makes you susceptible to a lot of distractions. And I think there's a lot of infiltration as well that just goes on normally. When you see a powerful figure in society, especially in Black communities, there's often distractions put on your way on purpose, and they know that you're susceptible to that. So there's also that. We have to keep in mind that his family lineage kept him on surveillance for like years, up to his death. I mean, he was on surveillance since day one. So I think there's a combination of things, but I really do think it's just distraction. That ultimately there was just a lot of things in the music business that is thrown in your way. And, he had a goal here. And Pac kind of just knew that he was chasing a statistic too. Like, he was like, he would often say, since he was like teenagers, that he wouldn't live past 25. And for me, somebody that's in that age range, I just be like, yo, he was here in my age. He was battling all of these court cases. He was going through, I can't imagine. I'm just here living my life, beginning my career as an archivist. I can't imagine having to take on all these having the vice president of the United States, Dan Quill, just like go at you and coming for your lyrics, coming for your message and who you're trying to reach, and saying that you are like the most horrible person ever, having C. Dolores Tucker and all of them just run over your CDs and say that you are so detrimental to Black women in their development. And it's just like all of these people that you're trying to do stuff for are going against you. And then you got the pressure of outside trying to balance staying in, making sure you tapped into the community, the thug life mentality, making sure the street guys are good, but also making sure the other people, that the sisters are good, making sure that, the brothers that are not necessarily in the street stuff is good, making sure that, all the other people, the international people that are tapped into you are good. Like, it's a lot a weight to have on your shoulders. And so obviously, a lot of people like to attribute Death Row to his decline. I don't think that is the case at all. I think he knew what decisions he was making, and he knew what that would lead him to. But obviously, he had a bigger goal at bay, and he knew that was going to be a temporary situation for him. But ultimately, the thing with Tupac is that, which you'll find in this book as well, is that loyalty is a theme for him. Loyalty leads to his decline, and he was loyal to a fault to the end. He had this so much loyalty just for people in general and for people he rode for, that the loyalty ended up costing his life.
Wow.
And
what do you think he was loyal to? What was that? Was it just loyal to the streets, or loyal to be seen as the tough guy, or
he was just loyal? He was loyal to anybody that was true to him. And that could be the streets. That could be that. I don't think it was just the streets. I think it was a multitude of people around him, because contrary to what people think, all these street dudes are not always street dudes, and some of them are real and some of them are not, but they all have a heart as a human being. They are. And he saw the heart in people all the time. It wasn't just, the street image. No, he saw the man. He saw the pain that these people were going through. He saw all of that. He saw past all of that. And so, so I think it was just the love for humanity that he was loyal to. And then at the end, of course, I think retaliation and the whole gang politics kind of got to his head a little bit. I think he got crossed up in that and was trying to, decipher and kind of untangle himself from that weave of madness, but it ended up being to his demise. And
it's almost the same loyalty that he showed or was showing, their same loyalty to that lifestyle got him
exactly. And that's what's so messed up about it, is that they're loyal to like gang politics. Loyalty is really mad backwards. Like, you know, and I've studied gang politics for several years, but Tupac was not affiliated at all. He was cool with both Bloods and Crips. He didn't care what you were. But a lot of people saw him pushing allegiance to MOB, Mob, which is Blood affiliated, Suge's side. But I mean, if you look at Thug Life, that's a lot of Crip energy going on there. That was like a lot of that. But he was cool with both sides. He could do, you know, he didn't have allegiance, but at the end of this day, it was just whom was in his camp and who he was close to, he would defend, he would go hard for, and all of that energy just, you know, ended up being what it was. And
see, that's you know, so for me, the lesson learned of Pac, you know, is like you know what you just talked about. Like you can have love in your heart for people. You can have love in your heart for people who you think are your people,
yeah,
even if they are involved in a war amongst themselves. But you say, hey, those are black people, those are my people. Okay, yeah, but those black people, they are in a war
yeah,
with each other, and they're at a war where it be on sight. And my thing, I was like, okay, knowing these things, you want to be loyal to people,
yeah,
but look where your loyalty, you could be commended for that. You do the right thing, but if you go around wolves, somebody gonna get ate.
for
You know,
sure.
they just that's the environment. Like you can't, and you know. So when I think of him, I'm like, man, I can see how the allure of all of that is very like, ooh, and then you're like, and they love me now. The girls, they love me now. You know,
Yeah,
that
you
is
know?
the allure of, okay, I got that. I know that makes certain people jealous or I become envious, but also people that want to be a part of this.
Yeah,
And then, you know, at that time, you know, sort of the rise of the very I don't know the word, you know, it was a rise of black men being seen very like, yo, I'm the man, you know, super
yeah,
aggressive kind
it
of.
was
We hadn't
very
really seen
hyper
that. Yeah,
masculinity.
we hadn't really seen it promoted to the mainstream like that. So that was a period of when brothers was like, yo, I can be like I'm on the streets and they'll make me a star.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I'm leaning into that. And all of the spoils that come with that. You know, they love me out here. I can go to every city and just
yeah,
walk out and they gonna, you know, praise me. This is when rappers was praised, you
for
know,
being, yeah,
like you didn't harm the rapper. The rapper was like, oh, you love, and he was that, and he was, like I said, super magnetic already.
yep,
Damn rap. He would have been whatever, he would have been the preacher that everyone, oh, that girl, he fine. He would have spoke. They would have said he was fine, and he would have motivated the community, and the brothers would have got behind him because they didn't believe in what he was saying, right?
real.
But he wasn't in the church. He was in the streets with killers, essentially. Some of
He was
these people.
preaching the ghetto gospel, as you know, he's the
Yeah,
ghetto
he went into the trenches, but he's
man,
standing next to, you know, if it was Star Wars, he's standing next to Darth Vader.
for
And
sure.
Darth Vader respects him, or at least seems to respect, or he's standing next to Palpatine, and
Uh-huh,
Palpatine is letting Pac come in, and Palpatine's like, here's your role, bro. You
right.
honorary Sith, come on in here, knowing that there's a war going on,
From
and
outside,
then,
right? You
and
know?
then, you know, Palpatine at a certain point, no, you will not rise above me.
Yeah,
I got something for you. Come over to the studio, and you know, he gets shot at or whatever. But he's around these people that are not to be played with. And at
exactly.
the end of the day, I don't know if he necessarily as much as real as he was, he needed to understand that, dude, you are a celebrity. They
Yeah,
see you as a means to be associated with something legitimate, you know what I mean? But they don't never see you as a killer like them. As
absolutely.
much as you may think they do, they'll kill you before they allow you to come. And that's exactly what happened to me. Like Yeah, you're standing around these people. They're not playing. It ain't a movie to them. They're
Yeah.
not playing a role or a persona. They're
Mhm.
really caught up in the madness,
Mhm.
and they're ready to do anything they got to do to achieve dominance.
Yeah.
Which Tupac is not ready. He may have started thinking he was ready. He was not ready to take down his closest people to be who he is. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, these people were. So when you get into a fight with these people, they're not gonna just let it go. They're gonna immediately, because they're loyal to the streets.
Mhm.
And the rules say he put a hand on you and he ain't
You
even with this.
got Yeah.
He would have to go home and be shamed, and he wasn't gonna be shamed. I'm just saying all this to say, like, when I look back, so I look at it now, I'm like, man, as much as sometimes you wanna embrace everything. Unfortunately, the world, you can't. You
Yeah.
can't embrace everything. There's certain things that will harm you and harm your family, and certain
Absolutely.
things you just have to stay away from. And I don't know if he was in a position to receive. I mean, again, he was very young, so why would he be in a position to understand these things? Smart as he was, he still was a
Yeah.
young man. But I don't know.
His folks, and his folks like Geronimo Pratt and Matulu, they would try and tell him
Right,
and
he had the Obi-Wans and
he
all of these people, but
although most of them were incarcerated, they were trying, they were
yeah,
sending word, yo, calm down, Mike Tyson, calm down. All of these
right,
people that have
right.
been, they were like, hey, let's dial it back. And even like Matulu was formative and like, okay, you had Thug Life, but you have to define Thug Life to these people.
Mm,
You
right.
can't just go out and say Thug Life because you know what people think thugs are.
Mhm,
You have to he had this thing with acronyms. He always did acronyms, like
mhm,
with the word niggas and thug life, like all of that was acronyms for him. So the hate you give
yeah,
F's everybody, that was his thing. But it's like you've got to have these rules. He was like Matulu set him down. It was like you got to have these rules set in place. So what are these? We're gonna make a system kind of similar to the 10-point program of the Black Panther, so you can so there was certain
mhm,
ways that they were trying to align him so he wouldn't get super out of control. But,
right,
then it would go back to because he was just young, like you said, like he was a young, like fired full hot-headed dude. It didn't take nothing from nobody. So
right,
you put all that together, then he's around all of these people. He's got a lot of folks in his inner camp that are kind of like sucking him dry. And
mhm,
then you see that, and then I always attribute that. You see this kind of a similar pattern go to Nipsey, like how he was in his own neighborhood and
mm,
his own folks took him out, and God
mm,
rest his soul. But sometimes you can't always go back to where you're from, and that's like the hard part for a lot of celebrity folks to grasp, because these people are like, you're literally a moving target now. Like you're not, you could, and I don't always 100% believe that you can't always go back to where you're from, but you just got to be aware a
yeah, you
little
have to be smart, cognizant. You have
bit.
to understand that you've elevated to a different level, and
Yeah,
unfortunately, certain parts of that community may not have elevated to that. Like, you
yeah,
become the prey at that point. I think I'm not we're not going on a negative thing, we're just sort of talking about this, but, I think
yeah, you
Pac
know,
and Biggie, and as great as, like, all of the I think of Pac when I think of Pac, and I listen to the records, I think of hope. Like,
yes,
it makes me energized, stuff that he'll say, it motivate I'm like, "Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I ain't got to look at myself in a bad way. Yeah, hold your head up." You know what I'm saying?
mm,
That's what I get, that kinda energy, but then it's sad because of the other thing, his death and Biggie's death sort of,
yeah,
usher in, the and you s and it's interesting how it's taken a little more years for it to really get out of control, but it ushers in the death, or the possibility of seeing our rappers, uh, you know,
youth, like,
our youth, or who the guys that we would hope, the artists, it ushers in the artists getting taken out,
yeah, absolutely,
and it's sort of like, okay, they're artists, they are artists, but they're artists in the midst of this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And now we used to hold up the artists, and you could come to certain cities and you praise them. That the rapper
Yeah.
was a hero, right? Rappers were heroes. Now it became, and I think they started it, not their any fault to them, but
Mhm.
it became where the rapper, oh wow, the rapper can get killed. Like
Yeah.
hero can die now. And
Yeah.
then, like I said, in the last maybe 5 years, it was a point where it's like every other weekend, it was like, God, what
Yeah.
rappers are dying? What that sounds how would that become dangerous?
Yeah. And
And it should never
especially,
be like
yeah, especially with Pac, like he was an invincible, like these are people you're like, ain't
that.
no way that you could take him out. Like there's no way
Oh, he'll
this
be all
man
right.
survived 5 shots. There's like he's
Mhm.
gonna be all right. Like that was a majority of people's initial reaction was like, yo, he gonna be all right. He was shot 5 times. He gonna
Right.
be fine. And when it came to a situation where he wasn't, I feel like again, as horrific as that situation was, it got to the point where you could see he's human. You got to look at these people. They're
Mm,
human. He's a leader. He is a spokesperson for the community. He's a spokesperson for the youth, but he's also human. Just as Malcolm X was human, just as MLK was human. These are people at the end of the day, and just because they are the voice of our community doesn't mean they can't get taken down.
mhm, mhm.
And that was a hard pill to swallow, I think, for the newer generation, the hip hop generation, because I'm post hip hop generation, but the hip hop generation, these folks took on the role of the civil rights movement
Mhm.
and the Black Panther, like these were the byproduct of that. So to see these our vocalized leaders be taken down like that, I think every generation has that, unfortunately, because that's just how America, that's how
Yeah.
that's how we wire. But like just to see that was definitely a calling back to seeing how those leaders were taken down,
Yeah.
to the John F. Kennedys, to the all like everybody, one by one.
Yeah.
So I think again, just going back to the humanization of our leaders and who we hold to a high regard in our community, that was definitely something that came to mind, at least for me in retrospect. But like,
Mhm.
I can't imagine in real time how that was with the East Coast, West Coast
It
beef
was
going on.
horrible. I remember that day. And again, there was no internet, so you just heard it on the news or
Of
something.
course. And my
And
father was at the Source Awards when all that
oh,
went down, like
interesting.
initially
Yeah.
sparked off. So I was like, the tension was so thick on both sides. So it was like,
Yeah, it was just I just remember it was so sad. I was so disappointed. I couldn't believe it. I was like, "What?" Like, it was just sad. And I remember, I think it was shortly after that, I always remember the source cover with Suge was on the cover. It
mhm.
was a little bit after that, and I was like, "Well, this is the guy." And I was like, "What?" I was still mad. I was like, "What the hell?" And then shortly after the Biggie thing happened, I wasn't even really into Biggie, but that that shocked me as well, and I just was like,
Yeah.
"This is ridiculous." I was like, What's going on?"
Mhm.
And then it was just at that point, I think I kinda was like, not over it, but I was just kinda like, there's something else going on
For sure.
in this thing," and this is before all the death row books and stuff came out, but you could
Yeah.
just I was like, "There's something else that's going on." It
I can
just doesn't seem fun, and
mhm.
then I remember, like, and Snoop, who was actually probably the biggest thing just prior to that, and was still
Mhm.
very big.
Mhm.
His second follow-up also kinda solidified, like, yeah, this is kinda over or something. It was because it wasn't good to me at the time. It
Oh, was it
wasn't
The Godfather?
Godfather. Yeah, I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, what happened? And I think to me,
Mhm.
that's when Death Row was just like,
You know why? Because all of them, like all of their songs went to Pac. So
yeah,
everybody was dedicating all their energy to Pac, and
mm,
that led to a lot of envy within Death Row too, as quiet as it's kept. I
yeah,
mean, he's the main attraction. It's like, oh, like, you know, a lot of like Daz and the Dog Pound stuff
Mhm.
went to Pac too. So
Yep.
it was interesting. Dr. Dre's
He
California Love
left.
was for
Yeah.
him. All of that went to him, you know. So it's kind of an interesting like shift in Death Row, and
Yeah.
Suge circled everything around him. So
That's funny, and I remember when, All Eyes on Me had came out, it was funny, there was a certain segment of rap fans or hip hop fans that
mhm.
wasn't feeling that stuff
I,
either, and they were more into Tribe and
yeah.
stuff and that, and I remember I was, playing it for some people, and they
Mhm,
was like, "Man, this is," also
mhm.
Dr. Dre's sound was so, how do I say? It was so, crisp and
Yeah.
clear, where hip hop normally was, "Oh, man, where's the grungy beats and,
Mhm.
the sample and the sound," so it just sounded, some people was just like, "Man, that's too commercial," or something, uh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
but so I remember that part of it too, but at the same time, you couldn't deny, like, "Yo, this is good music," like, it's a step
Mhm,
up from what
mhm.
we're doing, um, but yeah, it was a sad
Yeah, the production I think on that album is so innovative.
but
Um, absolutely. But you know, there's people like for me, like I had my period where I was like, nah, because I was so into um like you know pre-fame, pre like explosive pop and
mm.
pre-prison,
Yeah, yeah,
pre-incarceration.
yeah.
I was like, this is not like what I really
It's not
enjoyed
what got you.
most from him. You
Yeah.
know, this wasn't the message that I was really digging. And he really
Right.
started to get into the party rap part of it. And a lot of people call it party rap. But you know, I just felt like some some things were just getting lost in and when I started
Mm.
learning about the era more, I was like, I don't
Oh, yeah.
really. I went through that whole thing. I was like, you know, I started researching more. I was like, I don't think this was the best time, you know. This was a lot of madness that was going on. But then I was like,
Mhm.
you know, I just sit back and I was like, wait, this the worth again. Let's look at it from a different perspective. I had to check myself because I was like, he's still delivering messages up in here. Like you got to
Mhm.
listen closely. I ain't mad at yous. The you know
Mhm.
the trade and war stories. The you know although there are the life goes ons. Like there's still only God can
Those
judge.
nuggets. Oh, yeah.
There's nuggets. You just got to find them and that's what I feel like a lot of people forget about that album because you can get lost in the production so much because it's a lot going on and you
All
like
the singles are
all of
all
that, you know, the how do you want it, the all
mm.
about shoes. You could get lost in that role and that feel. And some of it is misogynistic. It is what it is because hip hop was what it was.
Mhm.
But you could get lost in that. But understand that he's still at his core, he's still who he is up in that. You just got to find it, and it'll make itself more apparent to you as you listen. And that's why you just got to keep listening to albums over and over again because you're not going to get it through one pass. You're not going to get everything, you know. You have to keep listening. And then as you grow, as I grew, I started to understand more and more each day the importance of how that album, like he had to make that album. He had
Mhm.
to make that dual disc, you know, he had to make his sign of the times. He had to, you know, so
Interesting.
you
And it's
know, he had
so
to.
yes, he did, and which is one of the other things, like, if he had been around and we
Mhm.
got to be here
Oh yeah.
for the Machiavelli, but even more importantly, for the One Nation,
Oh yes.
he would've, I was like, because I remember it was an interview that came out, it was before he died, and they were,
Mhm.
I swear he mentions, or it's mentioned
Oh,
in
of
that interview
course.
that he's working, and I was like, so like, "Oh, finally he's getting back to, the Me Against the World Pac that I love."
Mhm.
Okay, this is dope, but this ain't really
Wait,
it.
I have a
S
question for
Go
you.
ahead,
I'm
yeah.
sorry. Before you ask, so do you consider Me Against the World a bi-coastal album? Because I do. I think,
Yes, absolutely. Oh,
yeah,
absolutely. Easy Mo B,
production.
Johnny J, Shock
Mhm.
G, yeah, it works for both sides.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I just had to
Absolutely.
ask. Continue.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Mhm.
That, and to me, that album like I said, when that came out, we all loved that. But he
Mm-hmm.
just wasn't here. He was in prison. And then
Yeah.
when he comes back, it's totally about face almost in the sense where, oh, he's on the Dr. Dre Snoop Dogg lane.
Mm-hmm.
There's almost a difference between, this was something Special Ed was talking about earlier, and there was a lot of controversy.
Oh
The
yeah, Art of
difference, yeah, the difference between this is how I look at these two albums by Pac.
Mm.
All Eyes on Me is Niggas for Life, NWA. Me Against the World is F the Police, Ice Cube, NWA. So
Mhm.
the Ice Cube NWA is political and gangster.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he'll have, excuse my language, a bitch is a bitch. He's gonna have, but here's a mess, gangster,
Right.
dope man. These are kind of politically community tinged songs. They're not just talking about foolishness.
Right.
Once he leaves and they do Niggas for Life, that is super ridiculous. I, I I hate the lyrics of that album and I hate the message of that album, but the sonically I bought it because I'm like, damn, Dr. Dre is
Yeah.
in his
Approach to
bad
danger is
production wise.
crazy. Like,
But they
yeah.
don't. You can tell there's something they went overboard with that stuff. There was
Yeah.
nothing politically about that album,
Absolutely not. Yeah.
and that's how I saw the Tupac. I was like, okay, All Eyes on Me, hit songs. This is dope, but this isn't really what he was on prior. And I was so waiting for him to, oh, okay, that One Nation. Oh, he's about to bring it home,
Uh-huh.
and really let's get back to business. I
And
was
hearing that,
so
like hearing
waiting
the
for that.
snippets of Worldwide Timepiece and all of this, like
Yeah.
all of these songs, I was like, he had like Buckshot and Smith and Wesson, like Black Moon type vibes going on there. And I absolutely adore Black Moon like that.
Mm,
I love that East Coast vibe going on there. And so, like, to see how he was just trying to bring it on, he's like, I'm not beefing with the entire coast, man.
right.
It's a situation with me. And even with, I am so like, again, I'm from the tri state area. So I champion both of Biggie and Pac. And to know, like, at the school that I attended, they were like, that was like one of the first times they shared the stage together, if
Oh,
the
wow.
only time they shared the stage together at a homecoming. I attended Bowie State University, so that's part of my history. And I graduated with a hip hop studies and visual culture minor there, and I'm one of 3 people to do that. And I'm like literally probably the second woman to do that there. But
Wow.
you know,
Congratulations. Wow.
thank you. There's so much history with both of them and seeing their brotherhood just on, a hip hop tip that, I'm always like, I knew that they were gonna hash it out. It was,
Mhm.
you beef with your friends. If you don't go through hard times with your friends, like there's nothing, the friendship has to solidify itself in some way. Now it didn't have to be that big of a blowout, but it just was a misunderstanding between them two. And so to see Pac was like, listen, I'm trying to circle that back. Like, I'm not
Mhm.
even, I did my hit him up, I'm done. I put that energy out. I'm done. I'm getting ready to circle
Mhm.
back. I still got homeboys. I'm still from Harlem. I was born in Harlem. Okay. We got to
Mhm.
remember that he was born in Harlem and he still wants to pay love to the homes that all across the coast from Oakland. He had Richie Rich and the E40s, like he's
Yeah, yeah.
Bay down
Yeah.
to, to the Spice
Before-
Ones, to the
Right.
all of those people, down to the Wu Tang folks, like Wu Tang. He looked out for Wu Tang all the time. Like,
Mhm.
there's stories of Method Man and Red Man and Tretch, from Jersey, who was his homeboy, like his ace
Mhm.
to the end, and still
Mhm.
carries him. So he has so many deep roots everywhere, and he's such a worldwide person,
Yeah.
that he wanted to center all of that focus and focus on bringing peace to that. And you see that you're like, oh, he's actually about this. Like, we're trying to unite. I had my little tiff, but I had to get that out. He calls it spanking Biggie. That's what he said. Like, I had to spank my little brother. That's what he said. His words, not mine. But I had to spank my little brother, let him know that I'm the big bro.
Mhm.
And then we get back to what really matters. So his attention span also really like boggles my mind, because he could just go and, of course, like go get his anger out and then he'd be like, all right, I'm done.
Right.
You know, like you didn't just drop a whole bomb on the world and start a song with that's why I, you know, like that's gonna take a minute for people to get over. But
That touches on something you said. I was gonna
Mhm.
go back to. You put that energy out there,
Yeah,
and I think one of the lessons too is to understand you can
yes.
put that energy out there. You might be done with it, but
And,
that thing starts to spread and take a life of its own, and it starts to create an environment. As much as I thought "Hit 'Em Up" was like, woof,
yeah.
that's crazy. That song, looking back at it, I think a wise person would have said, "You know what? You recorded that, cool, but don't ever put that out.
Mm,
Like, just you got it off, but if you
right.
put this out, man, it puts an energy out there that you could be right in everything you said, but the repercussions of the actions of you doing this ain't gonna have nothing to do with you being right.
Yeah,
This can bring drama to you, and you could still be right. But
right.
do you really but logically or, would you want the drama in your life? Now, they say, "Oh, I'm ready for the smoke," but
Right.
again, maybe you
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 take
have
it
other things to do in life. You have
in.
bigger fish to fry,
Right.
for real, and this little thing might turn into something
Yeah.
that, could go a whole other so, that's why I say I wish he would able to gotten to a older age.
Yeah.
couldn't imagine when he had his calm down and can think before, "Oh, I'm about to go do this. Let me stop thinking about that."
Yeah.
You know what? Why? I don't care what they think.
I promise y'all that beef would have been non-existent. Like they would have been kicking and laughing, and it would have been, they would have gotten past that. Everybody
Mm.
has their tiffs, but just because they were young and it manifested in something. I also think, of course, journalism had something to play into
Oh, all
that.
of it plays into it.
You
Absolutely.
know, it was definitely magnified by all of the powers that be in those outlets. Vibe, all those people
Mhm.
they cashed in on that beef, and it went. So I have to give props to Angie Martinez for trying to
I put
put
that
that
in.
fire out.
I'm
And
very curious to hear that interview now, though.
yes, but she doesn't
Some of
want to
the
put it
things
out.
yeah, I was watching some video,
Mhm.
and they were like, "Oh, he was saying stuff in there about Quincy Jones and some
Yeah, he was saying
sexual
a lot
assault type stuff." I was like, I can see why she probably didn't wanna put but gosh, like, be very interesting to hear.
the
But,
way
I
she
guess
describes it in her book. It's like, yeah, it was very volatile, and like, so for her to have that integrity as a journalist, I appreciate that
yeah,
because
you
a
gotta
lot of
admire
that
it.
is non-existent now. Shoot.
Now
Oh,
upload.
right. They wouldn't even edit it. They won't send it to
No,
nobody. It's
straight
just
raw.
up.
Yep. Which is interesting because, looking back when you brought the journalism back then,
Yeah.
I don't know if there was any, uh, thing that they could have looked at in an example of how to operate. I don't know if there's anything that was before then that they could have been like, "Okay, well, we know how newspapers and magazines can influence
Right.
people," but I don't know if they ever had anything where it was artists were at each other's throats and
Yeah.
they put whereas today, you know exactly
What to do?
what can happen if you upload or put that out. And so I think the artists play into that now. Like
Absolutely.
that's actually the thing that's more valuable than the songs actually
Mhm.
is
Yeah.
to, put all that out
The drama.
that is their career.
Yeah.
But so yeah, you make it well, what did we learn from that? I guess this what we've learned is exactly where we're at.
Yeah.
And the
Yeah.
artists in the industry has learned to, okay, there are going to be this element in this industry, and before we didn't understand, if we put this out, how would it affect? Now we know, and so
Mm.
now we can use I'm just my thinking, we can use the artists as the pawn. They may not survive.
Yeah.
That's okay, because we got
Right.
another ones that's the actual industry is, "No, let's keep the beef going. The beef is the industry. They could die,
Mhm.
But we're not. The industry will just we know that. So now we have it set up that it just be a cycle of, okay, whose turn is it? He's either gonna crash out, come back, or they may get killed,
Yeah.
or they may get canceled, or whatever. But the turn is gonna keep rolling. That's a
And
part
our
of the game.
numbers are still gonna be our numbers.
Right.
Our
And
money is
and
still gonna be our money.
and I would say I think in 2024, which is interesting. I look at 2024, I'm like, with the Cat Williams thing, and
Yeah.
there's been a couple of other little interviews. I see
Yeah.
people trying to kind of repeat that. It is all about it's coming out the gate, hit them up. Like
Absolutely.
that's the actual play. Air them out or
Same energy.
say whatever you don't. And I don't know if it's going to be interesting to see what becomes of this.
Yeah.
Now, it could be somebody you just may get a whole bunch of views on a video and there's some talk and it may go. For some people, it may turn into something else.
Yeah.
It might even go more darker or something. It's just interesting to see like where we are after all of these things. Like it's even
Post.
more ramped up. Uh,
Yeah.
and-
I mean, that's one of those things like we kind of have to wait and see because again, we've experienced so much, yet history
Mm.
has a funny way of repeating itself. So you
Yeah.
don't know which way we're gonna be on the right side of history, we're gonna be on the wrong side of history. And it's all in which, the society makes that decision as a whole. So even though there's always going to be the rebellious group, the rebellious few that might not go
Mm.
with societal norms, and then there's going to be, the society as a whole making that decision. So I'm just interested on how all of this is going to play out as far as what we're accepting and what we're not, what we're holding accountability for and what we're not. So I just want to see how it's going to shape people's minds when it comes to journalism too, because we're in a state where actual journalists are not valued. It's really just everybody is out here with doing whatever, So
Mhm.
like the ethics behind journalism is not being accounted for. So is it going to
Mhm.
be a return to ethics after this, or is it going to be okay, we're going to push this
Right.
self-made, and there's nothing wrong with being self-made, but just learning the rules of the game is also crucial. You have to give respects to those who've actually went to school for this, who actually
Mhm.
paid they're in debt. I have friends that are in debt that are journalists that
Wow.
are pushing and can't even get a byline because they're telling their truths, and they have so much integrity, but it's so
Mhm.
draining to them to see people that are just spitting out fire and
Right.
making gossipy things and are not even in touch with the art and talking to these artists.
Mhm.
And so it's really a debate for journalists right now. I'm not in a room to say I'm a writer, but I'm not really a journalist. But I do, I do talk to and socialize and have friends that are journalists. But I feel like it's just a time for folks to, especially in hip hop journalism, to see if they can turn it around, or what is the fate, because a lot of people say journalism is dead anyway. They feel that way.
I think the traditional
Yeah.
journalism, I think it is, um, because like I said, you can do all of the things traditionally that you are to do to
Mhm.
become the journalist, but the mechanism for you to express that is built on something that is not based off of sales of magazines or newspapers, right?
Ooh, shock value.
Or ratings on TV for that matter.
Mhm.
Anyone can get in the game.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they've let it's wide open that anybody who's consistent, you could be saying
Absolutely.
foolishness, but if you're consistent and you look good,
Hey.
you can be in the game. Or if you're just consistent and messy, you'll really
Mhm.
be in the game. Uh,
Absolutely.
right?
Yeah.
So
Mhm.
it's unfortunate. I think, tra traditional journalism is dead. It's not, well, I will say this. In the marketplace of you making a livable wage, it's
Oh,
probably
yes. Of course.
you
Of
can
course.
still be a great journalism, but the equation that you being great journalism means you're gonna get paid.
To the same scale. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you separate that.
No.
That's and that goes with music too.
Absolutely.
To be a great musician, but in the words of DJ Quick, can you sell it?
Yeah.
Well, I'm the best. I play the best, so I should make the best. Well,
Yeah.
that's over.
Mhm.
That's not how it works anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, that's also
Absolutely.
I think now it's like, well, the real artists are gonna create art regardless.
Of course.
They're not gonna equate a living wage to their art. They're just gonna equate, I make art because I love this shit. I'm an artist.
Mhm. But they say art for
I'll get
art's
my
sake.
job over there or whatever, but I'm gonna be an
Yeah.
artist. And
Mhm.
I know my generation comes from the idea that you do this great art, whatever, you're supposed to make this. And I think we're coming to the realization that that's over. You see these actors are seeing the same. Sometimes you okay, yeah, you're famous. But that don't mean they're gonna give you money. It ain't
Exactly.
got nothing to do with it. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's different.
We
It's just
come
a
from
different
the
value.
multiple
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. We come from the multiple streams of income generation. Like, y'all not gonna get
Mm,
Social Security. They told us that out the gate. That
wow.
you have to start saving now. You
Mm,
have to pull in more. It's not enough for you to do one thing. They tell you that in college. You have to have several streams of income, whether it's owning your
mm,
own business, whether it's, having your own platform, whatever the case may be.
mm,
You need to generate multiple streams of income so you can survive and still retire and and
right.
live your life accordingly. We won't have these things. And so now you'll see artists that are bookstore owners but also rap. You know,
Mhm.
you'll see artists that are, have their own beauty situations, they're beauty gurus, but they're also rappers, or you'll see
Right.
YouTubers that are rappers. That's where all that
Mhm.
mentality comes from
Mm.
because we cannot sustain off of creating art for art's sake. We have to take a job at Amazon at night and fund our dreams during the day.
Mm.
We have to do that as filmmakers. We got to do, we have
Mhm.
to, we live in a capitalist society. That's just how it's built. We can't escape this. And so it's an interesting dynamic to be
Yeah.
in, especially in my generation, because again, like, unless you've got a government job, you will not see the benefits of all of that.
Right.
So mhm.
And I love, one thing I try to push, and there's no shame in you working. You
Yeah.
know, um, I was like, I'm not gonna say their name, but there's people that I was like, wow, I used to look up to these people. I still do. But in my mind, like, oh, they must be reaping the benefits of something they did 20 years ago, because that's what we were brought to think, right? Oh, he rich, or they no, I had to go to work. No, he went
Yeah.
to work, and then we can do this, Mike. And I was like, you know what? I actually look up more to that, because that's what real people have to do.
Yeah.
You don't, to try and like, oh, I'm gonna act like, I'm still balling off of this, or knowing your ass got to get up in the morning and go to work. There's nothing to be shamed about that. That's what
Mm,
a real adult does. Like,
absolutely.
you can still do this and do your thing, but it's
Mhm.
okay that you got to go get a 9 to 5, or you have to support yourself, or your, especially if you got a family.
Of
Like, what are
course.
you fronting on? I got used to, I used to be a rapper. I used to rap. I don't know. I know some guys that was rappers, and they was kind of bubbling a little bit, and they were doing their thing. We toured and stuff, but at a certain point, I was like, man, stuff ain't really popping like it used to. What do you? Oh man, I can't go work or nothing. Like, no, yes, you can. What are you talking about? You got a
Yeah.
family. Like, you trying to be a kid, trying to chase after this thing, dude.
Mhm.
You got a family to keep. No,
We
you should go work or do whatever, but there should be no shame. And you can be a journalist, or like you said, a movie director. But yeah, oh, you working a night shift over at the Amazon? I ain't mad at you, Playboy. Go get your money. That's temporary.
Mhm.
You go do your thing, or you do this on part time. Great. That's what you're supposed to. I mean, what
Yeah.
was wrong with that? So that's why, when I hear these acting stuff, I do believe they should get what they're worth, for
Right,
sure.
right, right.
But maybe you might wanna invest in yourself,
Yeah.
like you said, start a business or become a producer or something.
Mhm.
you should be able to like continue to grow. You're gonna wear multiple hats in
Absolutely,
life.
and you see a lot of people going behind the scenes now. Like,
Mhm.
like Jay-Z is not just a rapper, he's out here
Right,
making business moves, doing all of this, doing that, contrary to what people are talking about. He does nothing for the community, he actually does a lot for the community. But, people do things quietly. But the act of building generational wealth too, like, that's a big thing for us, is that we have to work these, we have to fund our dreams in order for these to be profitable for the future. That's the
mhm,
only way we can do this. And so, I think there is so much more that meets the eye when it comes to sometimes with our generation, because they're like, yo, y'all be complaining about these little jobs, and you're not, these normal jobs that you have, and we have access to remote work and all of that now. But
right,
most of the time we're doing more than one thing. I'm doing more than one thing. I have my own business, and then I have my normal job. Like, I'm not
right.
just out here. Then I do things for pleasure too, but trying to balance all of that also comes with the price, and sometimes it comes with the cost and energy. But when you really love something, you go hard for it, and that's where, again, back to the art for art's sake,
Mhm.
you do it. Like, I try everything. I'm not scared. I will try. I'll put myself out there. If I fall flat on my face, it is what it is. But it's for me to experience, and it's for me to get a handle on, and for me to understand. It's not necessarily for everybody else.
Absolutely. Well, man, wanted to shift gears a little bit. We'll get into some
Oh,
Prince here before we get up out of here. So, one of the big stories that has come out this week as we're recording this is that
mm,
Prince's Purple Rain is going to be adapted into a stage play for
yes.
Broadway. And this is going to, and so we're looking at Billboard. The production is set to feature Prince's Oscar winning score with a book by Brendan Jacob Jenkins. Jenkins. Well, you don't hear the Jenkins name. That's some old school. I just wanted to read a little bit of this and get some comments. So,
Mhm.
Baby, he's still a star nearly 40 years after Prince unleashed the original Purple Rain film and soundtrack album. The era defining story is headed to the stage and possibly the Great White Way. I don't even know what that means. I didn't even see that earlier.
Oh yeah,
A
that's a little.
Yeah, the Great White Way.
Hey, what
Interesting.
do they
It
mean?
must mean something in the stage world, or you know,
Okay,
because
I've
I
never
didn't
heard
even.
that. Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to look it up.
I'm sure y'all gonna let us know in the comments what that's all
Yeah.
about. Um, a stage adaptation of Purple Rain is under development, with a world premiere in the works, as per the Hollywood Reporter on Monday, January 8th. All right. The adaptation is set to feature a score by the late Prince with a book by Pulitzer Prize finalist Brandon Jacob Jenkins, who is currently enjoying the Broadway run of his acclaimed drama Appropriate. Uh, when they say a book, and see, I don't know the stage
Mhm.
world, Broadway, is that like some sort of booklet that comes with the shows that you when you go to the show or something?
No. So, there's also like just I'm not sure if they mean like here's one that's just like a normal play screen kind of like
Okay.
the play. I'm forgetting the words, but like the play written out in actual book form. I'm not sure what they mean,
Hmm,
if it's going to be this format, like the playwright format, or
okay.
it's going to be in just an actual book process. Like, I'm not sure what that is. I want to know more about that. So that's a good question,
Yeah,
but I'm not
okay.
I'm not sure about that because they're not exactly clear. But
Alright, and then so, yeah, so the book is gonna be by, Mr. Jenkins,
mhm.
um, and so the book, it says, will be based on the original Purple Rain screenplay, which was written by Albert Magnoli, who also directed the original film, and William Blinn. Uh,
Mm.
Lillian, if I'm saying her name, Cruz, who picked up a Tony nomination in 2022 for Best Direction of a Play, which was The Skin of Our Teeth, is set to direct with Tony winner Orrin Wolf on production duties. I think we got a quote. Quote says, "We can't think of a more fitting tribute than to honor Prince and the Purple Rain legacy with this stage adaptation of a beloved story," said L. Londell McMillan, chairman of North Star Group, and Larry Minstill, founder and CEO of Primary Wave Music. Now, of course, Londale is a part of, well, I think he manages uh, the Prince estate on one side, and then the other side, I guess, is Primary Wave.
Mm.
They both, and I don't know. You never see. No one ever mentions Larry Minstill. Everyone's, oh, Londale Spencer Spicer, but is another name that has a lot of control over the
Mm.
Prince stuff that we don't never
Yeah.
talk about.
Mhm.
CEO of Primary Wave. So salute to them. I know they're about their money. Says, "We are thrilled with our Broadway partners and creative team who are bringing a theatricality to the film's original fictional story. We can't wait for a new generation to discover Purple Rain and for lovers of the original film and album to experience its power once again, this time live." So there you go. When I originally saw this, I was like, you know what? Yes, I'm ready for it. I love this.
Right.
And I say that because I saw I don't know if did you see the Michael Jackson MJ the musical?
Of course. Miles Frost is a Bowie State alum. So
Okay.
yeah, we went there for
And that
sure.
was brilliant to me. I was blown away on that.
Amazing. I went down there to shoot that down. I'm not even gonna lie to you. I was very skeptical
Really?
back then, and I was like, I was proven very much wrong. It was amazing. It had nothing to do with Miles at all. It was just like Michael was. How are you going to portray Michael?
Right.
I'm very sensitive when it comes to Michael because of a lot of cosplay that goes around with him, the impersonators. I'm like, they finna put an impersonator up here on this stage. I'm gonna be mad. So I was coming in there. I was like, I don't know, but I'm gonna have an open mind. And I went and I loved it. And I also was hearing a lot of the rumblings of the folks who wrote the play in itself, the playwrights, and they were kind of like, yeah, he did all of that stuff. The stuff that I'm talking about. They were kind of like, was guilty of a lot. They felt that he was guilty of the allegation. So I was like, I'm like having to support that is very. Yeah, exactly. So I was just hesitant, but I went and I loved it. I couldn't be like proven wrong in any other way. And I felt it was a beautiful homage to him. They captured his spirit so well. And so much props to Miles, my fellow alum from Bowie State. He did the thing and he's getting ready to go out there in London and do it all over again. So he's ready to do all this, do all the good stuff with it. But yeah,
I did everything you said. I agree with. It was phenomenal. I took my youngest daughter with me, and we were just so that's to say, I was amped for this. Not to say I'm not now, but I have some reservations.
Yes, exactly.
Unfortunately, there was a piece in the New York Times. It was an article, very long article interview with Mr. Jacobs, and in that, toward the end of that, they kind of started touching on him working on this Prince Purple Rain screenplay.
Yes.
And I want to read a little bit of what was in there. And there's a lot in here. Salute to the author of this piece.
Yes. It was a very understanding of his backstory for sure.
Yeah. So I'm just going to skip through here real quick. It says, I think this is Jacobs sort of talking about how he came across this project. He says, in some ways, I must have manifested this. In 2020, he posed for a photo with the playwrights Dominique Masura and Katori Hall. I'm sorry if I'm butchering your names, and realized that he was the only one in the group who hadn't written a musical about a hometown hero. One of the comments he made was says, no one will ever ask me to do a jukebox musical because I'm from DC. And like no one cares about Roberta Flack. That's all we have, I don't know about that, but
that kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Yeah, I can imagine. I ain't from there, so I'm under my business. But
like, we got more than that, but okay, all right.
But all right, we're gonna let that ride for a second. Shortly thereafter,
Mhm.
a producer contacted Jacob Jenkins to commission a stage adaptation of Purple Rain, which, like him, will be turning 40 later this year. Um, Jenkins was ambivalent. I'm saying the name word. Although he'd grown up with Prince's music, he thought the movie Purple Rain was quote unquote bad. I don't think he meant the Michael Jackson, who's bad? He's saying
No.
bad like not good. And said as much on an exploratory Zoom call. But he agreed to consider the idea if only for his old mentor, Daphne Brooks, a Prince super fan who thought that he'd be an ideal interpreter of the musician's defiant singularity. And y'all got a vocabulary. I commend y'all. It's the philosophy of the sly, she told me. In her view, Jenkins' ethos of subversion is consonant with Prince's crusade against the music industry on questions of genre boundaries, appropri- appropriationists, and self
Mm,
definition.
mhm.
Okay. What better candidate than the queer author of An Octoroom to channel the voice of controversy? Am I black? Am I straight or gay? Who famously protested his contract with Warner Brothers by scrawling the word slave on his cheek. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm kind of seeing where they're going with this.
Yes.
And it makes, I'm reading it and I was reading like this. And then when they start saying some of these words, I'll be like,
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of.
yeah, I don't know if that's what Prince was doing, but okay, well, I'm still with you a little bit. Um, and I'm going to jump ahead. All right, the protagonist of Purple Rain is a young musician called the Kid Prince, who drives a purple motorcycle, writes strange and passionate songs, and vies for the pimp-like band leader, and vines with the pimp-like band leader Morris Day for the affections of a beautiful young singer named Apollonia. The version of Jenkins' adaptation, which I saw, retained most of the story, but gave its extravagant characters a 21st century makeover. Okay. I'm
Yeah.
still kind of there. I can understand. I was like, okay. I don't know what the makeover would be, but I could see
Mhm.
maybe maybe he just means, we bring them up a little up to date if they're still the same type of characters.
Absolutely. Because some of the
Uh,
stuff from the 80s would just not fly. Period.
right.
Mhm.
Day, when he made it past at Apollonia, called her a sophisticated multi hyphenate mamma jamma and suggested that she might have a future focusing on women's empowerment at his media company.
I'm sorry. I don't mean to laugh, but I'm really trying to understand. I'm really trying to understand a little bit. Trying
So
to see what it.
Morris is gonna have some kind of media company.
Huh.
Okay,
Okay, but it's kind of like
like
corporate
Jay-Z.
world vibes.
What'd
Corporate
you
world.
say?
I said like
Corporate.
corporate world
Okay,
vibes,
okay.
kind of
And
little.
yeah, okay, and it's some sort of that's okay, interesting. A media company, like, would that be some kind of social media thing or like what? He's
Maybe
got a
like
website
content
or
creation or something. Maybe like that.
so
Mhm.
basically Morris a YouTube.
Yeah, he like an influencer, basically.
Hilarious. So yeah, he's gonna be the Vlad
Yeah. Wait.
Morris.
Wait.
They're gonna have Morris with a podcast. I think this is
You're
good.
never gonna see Morris's face? That's crazy.
Anyway, okay. Uh, and then so she's gonna be and he's the one telling her that she has a future in focusing on women's empowerment. That's interesting. That
Uh-huh.
that's the is that the Morris Day character?
No, it's a total like was it 180? Yeah. That's definitely a turn.
Um, Apollonia had evolved from feisty, but pliant galaxy. I mean, I guess salute on the
Robust
vocabulary.
vocabulary.
She turns into a confident, creative force. Okay. The kid changed most of all from a seductively instructable and merciful figure to a more vulnerable young artist. In Darling Nikki, a song about a sex fiend, the character slut shames Apollonia for defecting to Morris Day. Yet the stunt backfired in an adaptation, triggering a deluge of texts that heralded the kid's cancellation.
I didn't realize that slut shaming. That's an interesting way to frame that.
It is.
Mhm.
I mean,
I
he
thought it was
definitely,
more of a vengeful play because he was
yeah,
just jealous, like. But because it was never really implied in the movie that she slept with Morris, though.
right.
So how is it? That's why I'm really confused on like the slut shaming part of it because
Well,
she
he's obviously doing something to her to make her feel the way she did to run out like that.
of
You know,
course,
whether whether I don't know if it's slut shame,
but
right? I don't know slut
you know what I
shaming.
mean? Like, of course, there's like a bit of misogyny in that, but I don't know if it's like slut shaming per se, like specifically. That's why I'm just a little confused with
Mm.
that.
So I'm curious now, is he still going to perform the song in this version?
Yeah, but
Or
maybe
just
that's where the media company comes in. Because what if they like blow it
live
up
streaming
and
it or
this is
something?
where it gets canceled and like all of that? That's probably what that's going to be
But
like.
for him to be canceled, that would I guess he is known. I guess I guess this whole thing is instead of First Avenue, maybe they're playing these songs online through this social media or something, and they're all kind of known to people that are paying attention to this. For
They
him to
could
be
they could
canceled, he would have to be
live
known.
right, but they could live stream it from like First Avenue. Like they could do it like that.
Right. I'm just saying, I guess
Oh,
they're streaming these things that they're doing now. That's the
oh yeah,
difference, right?
yeah.
So because how are people seeing this to be texting?
Mm-hmm.
So he gets canceled. Yeah.
It would work if he was a big time artist because he's a local artist. But unless it's like saying that, oh, after
Right.
it's like post this and this goes to the internet, it's like, Twitter,
Or
whatever it may be. It's
it's like they're somewhat known online.
okay.
And like there are rappers today that, they do have a presence online. It may not be
Right, right,
mainstream,
right.
but maybe he's doing something that's, yeah, I guess for
Hmm.
some reason people, oh, they can't.
Yeah, I feel like Morris is
Yeah, who's gonna be so what how is Billy like is Billy in this?
yeah, where's Billy? You got the Billy sound. This is a business.
I guess yeah. So is this the whole this is a business part then?
I
Oh,
wonder
you're gonna be
maybe
shadow banned. You're shadow banned off of
maybe Billy is part of Morris's company, or unless
or
they're
maybe
still incorporating First Avenue, like how is that going to work? Because
oh,
we
you
don't
know
even
what
know
it
if
is?
they're
They,
what.
they all are a part of just as an example.
Mhm.
They are on ha
Wait,
Billy's gonna be played by Joe Budden.
please, no, no.
And Morris and Prince are just like part of the crew. They be on the show, or they broadcast through his thing, and he gonna get pulled off. The Joe Budden, Billy,
They got the
man,
Billy
Paul and
Network.
Rory or whatever.
Yeah,
It ain't working, man. One of y'all got to go.
not
I can't
Rory.
have all these co-hosts on. Oh, come on, man. Well, where's Lisa and Wendy? You just be doing your podcast on the network.
And that's crazy because Joe Budden did have like those two girls that were having.
See,
I see the vision. I see.
so it'll be quite different. I say all this to say. Let me see if there's anything else in here. It's a way of tidying up the film's gender politics that also dovetails with Jacob's career-long investigation of humiliation and rebirth. A crucial moment in the movie arrives when the kid's father, a failed pianist, attempts suicide. His son integrates one of his unfinished compositions into a new work, parlaying a traumatic inheritance into a radically transformed identity. Jenkins, too, is rummaging around in the archives during restoration work on a narrative that may not have turned out exactly as Prince hoped. I feel him telling the story in the songs that the script can't figure out, he told me. By
Hmm.
studying the screenplay, as well as Prince's breakup with the singer Vanity, who was initially cast in Apollonia's role, he aspires to write a Purple Rain more original than the original. Faithful not to the film, but to the songs and their spiritual autobiography. He attempted okay, he attempted a similar trick with Kendrick, Octavia Butler's time-traveling neo-slave narrative,
Right.
adding characters inspired by early manuscripts of the novel. The reimagining displeased more than a few of her devotees. But
Mhm.
Purple Rain in all of its splendid access may be a better fit for this method.
I don't know about that.
Yeah. Let me just, we slipped out early after his song that Prince wrote for Morris Day called "Gigolos Get Lonely" too.
Mhm.
It was we slipped out after. It was a date night for Jacobs, who planned to attend the New York Film Festival with his husband, and I offered to walk. Excuse me, I offered to walk him down Columbus Avenue to Lincoln Center as we passed the Museum of Natural History. He told me that the lyrics to "When Doves Cry" were written for a montage cut from the movie, in
Mhm.
which animals really did strike poses as lovers embraced in a courtyard of violets in bloom. We're not even in draft three, he said, excitingly puzzling out the dilemmas involved in renovating the work.
Mhm.
Ah, ah, that's all I can handle.
I
I don't
know.
know. I don't know. What's your thoughts on this? There's a lot there.
So I just want to say, like, first, I was very excited about the possibility of Purple Rain, becoming, or not the possibility, the actual actions to put it towards the Broadway. Because I thought, again, like, similar to MJ the musical, I thought it was going to definitely bring that spark to the youth, and they can find their way towards Prince's work, and we'll build a bigger community of the next power generation. That was definitely a thought that came to mind at first, and I was like, I don't know if you saw my tweet. I was like, as long as it's written well, we're
Mm,
good. Now, I was ecstatic as a former playwright myself. I was ecstatic about the fact that we're having um, a black playwright, especially from DC, to represent for us, and definitely bring the blackness into Purple Rain, because as we know, it
mm,
was a lot of ambiguity within his race there. So I was definitely looking forward to bringing that element central, right? Um, okay, here's the thing. I went into it with my own, and I read that article thoroughly, and I looked at his background in writing, and he has a interesting background in the way he uh, interacts with his blackness, and of course,
mm,
um, his goal and his objective is always been to like shake things up and to like restructure how the
mhm,
black performing arts is viewed. So the producer who hired him knew that that was going to be about. Also, keep in mind that his influences are Toni Morrison, Octavia Butler, like these folks that are
mm.
Afrofuturist. So that also plays a pivotal role in how he's going to approach his writing. The huge thing about playwriting is about excavating your stuff and dealing with a lot of things face head on. So it makes sense of how he wants to restructure this and get back to the root of the original. However, I
Mm,
think people had in mind that this was going to be an adaptation of Purple Rain, not a
mm,
whole restructural phase of Purple Rain and getting to the root of dreams and building from dreams and onwards. I had no idea that. I had the adaptation in mind as well. I knew there was going to be some things omitted because we can't throw girls in dumpsters. It's not the 80s. We can't do those types of things.
mm,
We can't have those types of actions because Purple Rain is very much accessible to when you open that can of worms with Purple Rain, there's a lot of dialogue that will happen online and outwards. It's going to happen. And even when he restructures this play, it's going to happen because there's going to be reference to the past work, and then they're going to compare. And so I'm hoping the estate is uh and those that manage the estate are ready for that dialogue to happen, because it's going to happen. It's going to happen full force, whether they're either going to applaud or condemn. So both are going to exist. But I was just very happy at the prospect of this. But then I was very hesitant when I read that article, because I was like, is he aligned with Prince's goal? I was like, I see the parallels in his fight for blackness in playwriting and his journey as a playwright, but I'm also worried about the message in which Prince wanted to convey with Purple Rain being lost in translation. And keep in mind, if Prince were alive today, it would be very different. We all know, because people grow. And I'm not here to say, oh, Prince would have wanted this, Prince would have wanted that. That's omitted for me, because he is not here to speak for himself. But what makes my heart warm about this, and I had to sit back and check myself, because I was like, he actually wants to get to the root of Prince's story, and not what was told through Prince. I mean, what Prince told or was sent to Albert Magnoli and those who were not of color in translating his story. So he does want to return back to Prince's original story, which is very heartwarming to me. However, I'm not sure about the character changes. I think it's a thing that, more of the story is, I think it's a thing you have to, with a lot of plays and a lot of, visions when it comes to Broadway productions and just theatrical spectacles in general. You have to see it before you have to see the finishing project, and it's too early to judge. And you kind of have to see it for yourself and make that decision, because art is subjective. It touches whomever. But if it hits a core audience and it hits the young generation, I'm all for it. But I don't think it's going to be as detrimental as we think it is going to be. And at first,
I agree with that. I actually agree with that.
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, this is going to be crazy. But we have to look at it. This is not an adaptation. This is an actual reconstruction of what Purple Rain is. And keep in mind that Purple Rain are characters. This is not Prince. He's not there. He's not making a play out of Prince's life. This is not MJ and the musical in that sense. Prince, the kid, although the kid is synonymous with Prince, the kid is loosely based off of Prince's life, if it is at all, And you would know more, because you've all have been delving in more into the creative process of Purple Rain and reading Dwayne's Two Dolls book, and working through that on a weekly basis. But Prince funded this film. He he put every ounce of himself into this. So as much as we want it to be the same as Purple Rain, it's just not gonna be. And I think the only people that can make it similar to Purple Rain is the people that worked on it. Everybody comes in with their own vision as a writer. That's just how it is, and as a creative. So we just got to keep in mind that this is not an adaptation. This is a whole reconstruction of what Purple Rain's going to look like, and the character is not Prince himself. That's just my outlook on it, really.
Yeah, it's my main point of this would be, I'm open to see what they're going to do. I'm a person who, I feel like things can be remade. It can't be made better than the original. Well, I'm not gonna say that either, but they're not gonna replace the original. And it'd be one thing if they said, we're gonna put this movie out and pull back Purple Rain so you can never see the original. They're not doing that.
Yeah.
So somebody else's interpretation of it, on the surface level, I'm kind of curious. Like, I like that in certain things. Like, there's certain, I like different interpretations of Batman, for instance. I love different interpretations of Spider-Man. Some I like better than others. I don't mind that. The only thing is that I really question is, like, when Mr. Jenkins said, he thought the movie was bad. Now, you can still have an opinion that you don't think is good. I just don't think that it's in the best interest of the product or the audience that you're trying to attract, or maybe you're not trying to attract the old school, but they say they want fans of the movie. If I'm a fan of the movie and they've hired someone to do a version of this, and then he says he thinks the original was bad, right off the gate, I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
well, whoa, why would you be involved?
Exactly, and that's where my mind went. Like, I don't think that article did him much justice in the,
Yeah,
you know.
it's like, oh, well, I think that do the right thing is bad. So I'm going to do the version like, well, I can understand you may not like the movie, but so you're gonna do better than Spike. Okay.
Right.
So this is a bold thing to say. What I think they would say wants to do better than the original.
Mhm.
And again, if you would have been just speaking about something I didn't necessarily care about, or I like risky business. I didn't like risky business. I'm gonna do a black version of it. Okay, I didn't really have I didn't have a stake in this, but all right. But I do care about this. A lot
Right.
of people care about this, and we're passionate about this. So
Mhm.
if you're gonna come in here talking crazy, then yeah, we're gonna have to be like, hold up now. You know,
Absolutely.
we're supposed to be like, pump your brakes. So
Yeah,
I like to say to Mr. Jenkins, young man, yo, do your thing,
exactly.
but you don't need to be. I would say, and you can say you're a man, but maybe not like you don't want to put stuff out there that may come off as disparaging to Prince's work. You're kind of disrespecting the fan base when you say stuff like that because we love it. No, we've been watching this movie for 40 years or however long we've been alive and you've been a fan. You love it. So when someone come in and say, well, the Sign of the Times album is kind of bad,
Mm.
you know, I can make it better than we're gonna redo it for a 21st century. I'll be the first one like, no, you're not. Stop. You can
Yeah.
make something like it, but stop. You're talking crazy. So
Mhm.
we're talking about Prince and Purple Rain. Put some respect on the name. That's
For
the first
sure.
thing. And then you wanna do something different, cool, come
Right.
on in the community and let's see what you got going on, but that's
Absolutely.
my only thing. I'm interested to see what the 21st century I'm not gonna say old, some fans may not care for this,
Yeah.
and you know what? You don't have to go see it. I agree with what you said earlier. I don't think this is going to have any real detrimental effect, or
Yeah,
it could be but it ain't gonna stop Prince's music from being played.
absolutely.
It ain't gonna take, and they're not pulling the records off the shelf or off the digital, and they certainly ain't getting rid of the original movie. So
Mm.
have at it. Uh,
Mhm.
I don't know if our Broadway plays really popping to the point where they would push people away from, a legacy of music. I don't think so.
Mhm.
Uh, so we'll see what they do, but yeah, there are a group of fans out here that are gonna be, you know,
Yeah.
taking it back a little bit. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Uh, if you're coming out and saying it's bad, that's not the first step you take when you're gonna do something and you really want to bring everybody in. You don't come out like that. That's my
As a
only.
first impression, that is not
Yeah.
you want to be very careful with the verbiage. It just might be because he's not as, again, like, not as in touch with the purple community. So he's not really, and I was like, I really hope somebody briefs him on, the inner workings of this community, and knowing that it is a multi-generational situation here. Like, you're talking, although you're targeting to younger, generations that you want to welcome into Prince, you have to account for the generation that has already been stable since Prince for day one. You
Mhm.
have to
And
be a
and they actually
bridge.
say that. They say they want both new and lovers of the film. So they want us
Right.
all to come in, like, to your point. Yeah.
Yeah, but it just seems like he's not targeting, like, his verbiage is just a little, it could be, I could see how it could be off-putting to, the more seasoned generations in Prince, because it's like, yo, hey, you're kind of,
So
and
we
then
grew
just
up
even
on this.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We
you
grew
grew,
up
like,
on
you know
the
what I'm
social
saying?
media.
And it's kind of, it looks a certain way. The verbiage was just a little off-putting, And so, I hope this is more of a lesson in like, hey, I got to watch how I attack this with the community, with the purple community, because it's just, yeah, you just have to be careful with your verbiage and knowing that you're dealing with multiple generations here. Because what he said to me, I'm like, all right, you're valid in your opinion, because everybody on Twitter, every 5 to 6 business days, they're gonna say Purple Rain's bad. They're gonna say Graffiti Bridge is trash. Like, that's just their opinion. And I'm so used to people spitting out their opinion that I was kind of like unfazed by this, because I know I'm solid in what I love and it's not gonna affect what it is. And we're tested like that every day on social media, so it didn't affect me as much, but it did put an impression on me that I'm like, oh, you coming in with this kind of energy, so I kind of already know what's up and how you're gonna attack this. But then when I started to read more, it just started to counteract that initial impression I had, because I'm like, oh wait, you're interested in going into Prince's archives, you're interested in seeing what he wrote with Dreams initially and trying to return back to that. So it's, you just have to be careful. That's all I'm just saying, is that you just have to be careful in how you attack this and your point of voice. Exactly. And it's just we got our, the purple community has our guard up for Prince. Like, it is what, you gotta come in here swinging. We're protective of Prince, and it is what it is. So, it can get really sticky. Yeah.
Yeah. You're talking about some iconic work,
Mm-hmm.
and you come in and say you're gonna do better. That's a wild position.
Yeah.
On any type of iconic work. Oh, you like what's one of their big movies? Iconic movies from back in the day. Oh, you like Gone with the Wind? No, it was kind of bad. I'm gonna redo it for 21st century. Boy, they be up in
They say
brothers are not whoever. No, not going to allow. They be going crazy. So
you said The Godfather's trash. What?
Right. I'm gonna do it better. Okay. All right. See what happens. But yeah, so I mean, again, I know there's both sides to this. I know that there's some hardcore 10 toes down Prince fans. It's like, I don't care what. I'm not mad at that either. I get it. And there's gonna be some people like, okay, I'm gonna see it. So we'll see what happens. I hope it's dope. I want it to be good, because I want to see it. I want to enjoy it. I want to be like, oh. And if it changes it to make it some parts great for kids or whoever, great. But please don't change the music.
Yeah.
I hope you don't think you're gonna be redoing it.
Let's create around the music. Let's not, you can add some things if you want to add some things from the vault in there. Go ahead, by all means. If you want to add electric intercourse and all that stuff in there, go do that. But like the core of Prince has to stay in. The core of Prince is his music, absolutely. So
we're not trying to hear the drill version of Darling Nikki or the
drill version,
chopped and screwed version of Jungle Love or something. Like, no. Don't get too
girl, I want to know you.
Well, yeah, we on Morris and them are down south. Like, Lord.
Now,
but again, who knows?
Yeah, I also want to circle back to the idea that we were talking about with the book. Now, it might be an actual book, like like an actual fiction, because to my understanding, Mr. Jenkins, he is actually a fiction writer as well. Like his whole
I wouldn't be mad at that.
Yeah, was kind of, so I think he might be going into the speculative fiction route with the book. I think that's kind of what maybe I'm getting from it. So just based on what I read in I think it was the New Yorker, like, prior to that blurb about Purple Rain itself. So it might actually be like a speculative fiction book. And that also could get the younger generation in too, because there's such an emphasis on Afrofuturism. So if he decides to go that route with his influences aligned with, like, again, circling back to his influence of Toni Morrison, Octavia Butler, and so on and so forth, then that could definitely bring in a new audience too, because I am a passionate speculative fiction reader and Afrofuturism enthusiast. So I would love to see how that goes too. I mean, like, again, creative freedom is creative freedom, and I understand that as a writer more than anything. Like, I understand that we all come in with our own voices and they have to be, distinct within our creative fields. So I get the creative freedom, but just make sure the core of Prince is still there. That's all I asked. And
Yeah.
salute to you for this opportunity, because this is a once in a lifetime thing. And just all you have to do is make sure, like, I know we talked about this before with like the things with All Eyes on Me and stuff like that,
Right.
and how that kind of, you have to understand, this is a play. A play is a play. A movie is a movie. So not everything is going to be 100% accurate, because it's supposed to be a production. So I always keep that in mind. Like, Straight Outta Compton didn't keep me from loving Eazy-E less, or it didn't make me do any of
Mhm.
that stuff, even though it wasn't 100% accurate. It didn't prevent me from loving those groups or loving hip hop or their
Right.
contribution to hip
True.
hop. Now, the accountability that was held with certain things, like with D Barnes and so on and so forth, it did put a
Mm.
blemish on their legacy in that way. But again, certain things are going to be addressed. I'm going to circle back to the omission of JJ Fad and Ruthless Records legacy. Like, certain things like
Mhm.
that, you're like, oh, in retrospect, that was an eyesore, but in the moment, it was a cultural phenomenon.
Mhm.
I chose to not be present for the All Eyes on Me situation. I chose not to do that, but I looked at it and I was like, it's a film. It wasn't
Yeah.
detrimental to Tupac's legacy in any way. Now, you can debate or whether or not it was additive or subtract. I don't think it's subtractive, but whether it was additive or just null, sure. But
Have you
I
seen the movie?
anything. Yes, I have. I saw the movie, like, when it went on to be released after the
Oh, okay.
theater, but I was
Okay.
definitely part of the boycott and not going.
Wow. I remember there was that.
Yeah.
See, I went the day it came out. I just
Mhm.
had to see it. And I totally respect and understand why people boycott it, and
Mhm.
I can understand that. Uh, I guess for me, it just, uh though I know there's things kinda twisted around in it and
Yeah.
whatever, I still felt like there was enough of the spirit of
Mhm.
Tupac and the young man who played him that I
To me
just
too.
got it was a joy to sit in the theater and to hear it, and I was like, "Wow, it's not Tupac, but this is the best that they can do to, like." It didn't feel like it was enough for Tupac where I got lost in it for some scenes, and I was like, "Man,
Yeah.
I liked it," and I have since bought the movie,
Yeah.
and actually I watched it with my daughter. She'll be
Mm,
21 next month.
okay.
Well, they know a little bit about Pac. I think I
Mhm.
may have watched it with my son too. Actually, I did, and they didn't know really anything really about him, and I could see that they were like, "Wow, I didn't know he was doing all of this," and I
Yeah.
can tell they were very, like when he died, they were like, "This is how he died?" Like,
Mhm.
"And what happened with that?" They were like, "Well, what happened?" They haven't really come out with anything, but I could
Yeah.
see from somebody who didn't know anything about it and just watching, it was compelling enough for them. They were like,
Yeah.
"Wow, like this guy, there's no rappers today ain't like that." Like he was, you
And
know what I
that's
mean?
exactly how I felt with, Straight Outta Compton with NWA. That was, like,
Mm,
my situation, because I was like, I knew Ice Cube, I knew all of those things, but I knew
mhm,
NWA, I knew some of their music, but I wasn't as in touch with the cultural impact that they had on hip hop and
interesting.
just rap culture, period. And
Okay.
so I was able to tap into that through that movie. I felt that, going to
Mhm,
see that probably, like in high school, and like figuring that out and being able to go through their discography, that was a point of tapping me
wow.
in. And so I feel as though, like, this All Eyes on Me was an opportunity for your children. It was this Prince play could be an opportunity for
Mhm.
folks, the younger generation, to tap in as well. Even though it's a story, we have to keep in mind this is a narrative. It's not going to be
Yeah,
100%
it's
historically accurate. That's just
right.
what it is. So again, like, even with TLC, the TLC biopic, everything wasn't 100% accurate, but it
Mhm,
pointed me to everything that was. And circling back to Pac, like how Pac had the Dear Mama, I was alert for that. I went back with TLC. I went and watched The Last Days of Left Eye so I could understand more of
Mm,
Left Eye's story, because her story was
mhm.
not as included, you know,
Right.
and her family was kind of left out of that. So I went and sought that. And so it
Mm,
just it makes you alert as a researcher, as somebody that's passionate about all of this art and
mhm.
the artists that you're tapped into.
Yeah.
You go seek that information, you know?
That's yeah, interesting the way you frame that because I think when I was younger, we didn't necessarily have the movies, but I
Mhm.
remember there were autobiographies that would come out. I
Yeah.
specifically remember was it Dreamgirls?
Oh, yeah.
One that was the lady who was in the Supremes.
Yeah.
That book blew my mind when I
Was
read
it
that.
Mary,
Oh,
Mary,
yeah. Mary
Mary
Wells? Or
yeah, I think it's I'm forgetting
I
her
know
last.
I'm probably messing the name up, I feel so bad,
I
but
know, right? I'm like, I know I see it, but I just can't. It's Mary something though. Yes.
that book blew my head open when I
Mhm.
read that, and I wasn't no big Supremes fan. I mean, that was a generation before me. I
Yeah.
knew who they were, though. I knew Diana Ross was big,
Mhm.
though she was, still a little ways from me, but as a kid, I saw the pictures of, like, Upside Down, and, like, I knew it was like, "Okay," and that's the same lady that had the songs, and they were in black and white with the Motown,
Mhm.
and I had heard about that book, and I read it, and I was like, "Yo, this is kind of a peek to what it's like to be, in that industry and what was going." I was like, "I gotta read more," and so I started reading more. I got into this whole autobiography stuff of artists that were before my time, but I
Absolutely.
dove into the music after reading those, and I wonder if these sort of autobiographical thing and maybe for the hardcore fans, they're like, "Yeah, that's not how it really happened." I get that, but is it maybe it's enough to spark the interest from a new person's perspective to go in
Abs
and dive and go get the books or listen to the music,
Uh-huh.
that type of thing, so, and when I think of it like that, I'm interested to see Purple Rain, the State. And as I think about it now, I wouldn't be mad if they did a movie, though I know it
Yeah.
would probably be met with even more
Oh, art yes.
protest, which I respect that. I understand it.
But a lot of Broadway plays lead to that. Look at, The Color Purple. Look at that.
Color
I mean,
Purple.
that's facing a lot of scrutiny too, so it's gonna
Mhm.
just come with that because it is what it is, but,
Yeah, and I
um
remember now I'm gonna cut you off real quick.
Oh, no, no, go ahead.
One of the one of my greatest albums and a movie that I loved as a kid and my child at 8 years old
Mhm.
knows the songs today, and I believe it started as a Broadway play was Grease,
Of course.
which I'm sure
Of
the Grease
course.
of the movie is a little different from that original play that was I heard was a lot more raunchy, but
Yeah.
I love I didn't question I bought that record, knew all the songs. Saw that movie multiple times in the theater, it became a
Mhm.
cult classic to me and to many others, I mean, and that was a Broadway play turned into a movie and is a different take on the original, I suppose, so it can
Mhm.
happen, and
Yeah, and my love for theater is deep. Like I had to study a lot of theater, including hip hop theater, while I was in
mm,
college. So I've got a different respect. And again, as a playwright, I have a different view on this. So,
okay,
I could, my view could definitely be opposite to yours, and everybody's entitled to their opinion. But
absolutely,
again, like I just think the creative licensing around this is there's so much to include, there's so much to add to these characters' worlds. And like you said, like with the Wiz, that was one thing too for Color Girls,
mm,
there's so many. We've seen a lot of these films, I mean these plays turned into
mm,
films, turned into books, have been more expounded upon. So there's just, I mean, the only thing that I'm saying here is that there's just so much context to add to these characters creatively and historically. I mean, he has the option to stay close to what Prince's imagining of these characters were, but also
mm,
bring in what the final production was in 1984. So, he can go as far and as little as he wants to, but just think about the creative possibilities.
right,
That's what I want people to know is that, and then at the end of the day, the goal is to expound the Prince community. So we have to look at that as well. And it might not be for you. I mean, like, not Purple Rain is not for everybody. That's not
Mhm.
everybody's target audience. A lot of people want to
Right.
focus on musicology or come or, the lot of artificial age like me, like there's a lot of anniversaries coming off, but we have to understand the historical impact that Purple Rain has on society, and it's in the Library of Congress for a reason. There's
Absolutely. Yeah.
there's so much weight here that we're dealing with, and so I think it's bigger than us. It's always
Yeah.
going to be
Yeah.
bigger than us. It's bigger than Prince. It's he created something that is, again, just a culturally significant film, and whether you
Mhm.
like it or not, you cannot discount that. And so as long as the writer doesn't discount its cultural significance, its historical significance, it's all good to me. Do what you want.
Right. Yeah.
As long as it's not insulting him in any way, then go ahead. And I think that's what um my census around a lot of the All Eyes on Me, the Straight Outta Compton's, the TLC biopics, as long as it's not insulting the artist, and it's trying to stay as culturally truthful as possible, then we're good. It's not always going to be historically accurate. That's just how it is, because they have to make things work for their production and for timing and staging and pacing of films. And as a filmmaker, I understand that more, and I think that's where I started to understand a lot of the biopics. I used to be like, these biopics are trash, yo, like they're not historically accurate. And me as an archivist, I'm sitting here like, bro, come on. Now, I read these books, I watched these documentaries. How hard is it to put it to screen and make it right? And
Mhm.
I'm just looking at it that way. But as I became a filmmaker and made my own film, and that process is hectic in itself. So I get it. I understand why they made it this, their way. And I also, there was one thing I wanted to say that I just forgot, but I'll probably remember it. But I think it was relating to, the books, the autobiographies. That's how I got into artists. That's literally,
Oh,
I
okay.
read
Interesting.
biographies like no tomorrow. That's like one of my favorite things, from Quincy Jones to Michael Jackson to Lenny Kravitz to,
Mhm.
Prince's own biography to, T-Boz's books of poems to, you know, unofficial, unauthorized biographies. I read those too, but I
Mhm.
really try to read as much as I can from the artists themselves. Rick James, so many people, Janet Jackson, all of these folks. I read so much, even outside of like my music world. Like, I read about Basquiat so much. I read about the Andy
Mhm.
Warhols. I read about the, Keith Haring's. Artists
Mhm.
have so many similar mindsets that you wouldn't imagine. And I feel like autobiographies have unlocked some of the most keys to life. Even reading about revolutionaries, like when I started reading about Tupac, I read about his mother. I went to his mother's biography. Then I went back to Black Panthers. I went to the Fred Hamptons. I went to, the Angela Davises. It unlocked so much for
Yeah.
me.
Yeah.
You learn about all these key figures that they mention in their lives. So, and then you can go with Prince, you'll do the same thing. When you read Prince's biography, this Purple Rain play can unlock them to go to read Prince's biography. Want to read more about Prince, then you read about Prince's influences and understanding how his makings of an artist. And then it brings them into this whole world of funk and, just whatever all of his influences, the Parliaments, the Sly, who has a biography out now, like you just get entrenched in the world. And so it's just a endless portal. There's just
Yeah.
so many opportunities. And so I just want to encourage people to look at the opportunity here for the fandom to grow. And some people might not want it to grow, and that's on them, but I want to see more people come in. I want people to carry on the love of Prince's legacy, for so on and so forth. And it's just, I see the vision for it to take on multiple lives. You know what I mean? So, but yeah, that's, I was a little long winded there, but that's
No,
what I wanted to say
I
about
love it. Love it. Man, I think we have exhausted everything we can say about this. I'd love to hear you, the listener or watcher, what you guys think about this. I know
Yeah.
there's a lot out there. I guess we're just going to wait and see
Yeah.
what the first pieces of this come out and what it looks like. Yeah, well, and this is, I guess, this is the year of Purple Rain.
Yep.
Uh,
Boring
get
40.
ready. Yeah, like last year was all about hip hop 50. I guess this year's gonna be Purple Rain 40, and that's a great thing. You know, but I love to celebrate Prince. There's a lot of other milestones, I'm sure, for albums this year we'll talk about, but yeah, this is probably his most mainstream, his biggest album, and we gonna embrace that.
Of
You know what I'm saying?
course.
'Cause this is a gateway. Oh, you like Purple Rain? Oh, cool. You should check out this other album, or you should check this out, because this is just another gateway to get people in. That's it.
It's the honey. It's the honey to the trap, you know?
There you go. There you go. We're gonna get up out of. I was thinking of playing something as we go. I can edit this to get through the. Oh, we're gonna go back to Pac one more time.
Oh, we turning back.
You know, just because. And it's funny. This song title is a nod to Prince, and we're gonna end it. Oh, first of all, before we get out of here, where can they find you online?
Socials. Okay, so if you want to follow my personal page on Instagram, I'm India Soulful Haze, all one word. And if you want to follow me via, like, you know, all the Prince stuff that I do, I'm Miss India on Twitter at Planet India M, Miss Power Fantastic on Instagram, and make sure you follow the Purple Townhouse on Twitter. We are just at the Purple Townhouse on Twitter. And that's where we have our spaces, or we do spaces once a month. It's myself, Randy, Chris, and Perla, and we're just holding it down for the next power generation. So you can check me out there. I have link trees in the bio, so you can get hip to everything that I got going on. And yeah, that's where you can find me.
Love it, love it. It must be getting dark over there where you're at, huh?
It is. I know. I got to turn on. I'm sitting close to the camera like this.
I hope you don't notice my power went out. My battery's still on. It's almost charged out. But, all right, so here we go. When thugs cry.
Yeah.
When thugs cry. Yeah. The world ain't ready for us, homie. The world ain't ready. Born thugging and loving the way I came, my big money clutching, busting while evading cocaine, bust my post rushing, send my clutching into insanity. They shot at my cousin, now we busting at they old family. The cops wanna see me buried, I ain't worried. I got a line on the DA cause I'm fucking his secretary. I black out, start cussing, bust them and touch them all. They panicking, bitches ducking, I rush them up from them all. Probably be an old man before I understand why I had to live my life with pistols close in hand. Kidnap my homies, sister, cut her face up bad. They even raped us, so we blaze they bad. Automatic shots ring out on every block. They putting hits out on politicians, even cops. I ain't lying, they got me sleeping with my infrared beams. And in my dreams, I hear motherfuckers screaming. What is the meaning? With thugs, battle scars and closed caskets are multiplied. Motherfuckers die, don't ask why. When thugs cry, we don't shed tears, we shed blood. Do you still wanna be a thug? When thugs cry, battle scars.